all those presenters for a little while, maybe walking around back here, but I'll make sure that I can talk into the mic. Okay. So the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there anyone who'd like to lead that? Joe, maybe?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have no local liquor control board. So I'm going to close the select board and open as the local cannabis control board. Are you for Alti?
I am.
Okay, great. Thank you. So today we have a motion to consider the approval for the local cannabis license for Altius. And would you like to come up to the mic, and if there's any questions or if there's any comments you'd like to make?
No comments. This is my first time doing it. Normally my partner Timothy Ryder is here, but he is on vacation with the family. So my name is Brian Fitzgerald, and just wanted to show my face as needed, and thank you guys for obviously the work you guys do as well.
Okay, thank you. And is anybody here on the board have a question for Brian? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion for this approval. Ida?
Chair.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the cannabis license number S-0000126661 for Altius THC LLC.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Miranda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have 5 people today without Mike, so it's 5-0. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry you had to come this
Not
quiet.
No, I
moment.
really I appreciate you guys.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right, so I will close the local cannabis control board and reopen as the select board. Our next business is the order of agenda. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Yes, as I mentioned in an earlier email, we can dispense with one of the 2 executive session matters, that being the discussion of contract negotiation with the clerical workers union. It seems that our attorney and the union's representative have had some scheduling conflicts and haven't been able to button up some final language. I don't anticipate a problem, and we're looking forward to coming back on this topic on September 2nd.
Great. Thank you, John. Okay, so.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. The other item that we have queued for executive session is deliberation on the candidates, which ones we want to choose to interview. And procedurally, this is something that I suggested that we have the opportunity to reduce the size of the pool in case we got a lot of applicants. We have 5 applicants. I think I agree with the email that Vice Chair Mike Hoyt sent, which said that it seems like a manageable number to interview them all, in which case, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I was going to suggest that maybe we don't need executive session if we want to interview all of them. We can defer that decision, or we can decide now, I guess.
My only question is, some of the logistics still need to be discussed. I don't think that has to happen in executive session, but for example, I'd want to know, for setting the next agenda for that session, how much time you'd like to allot to each of the candidates.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about a set of questions to be propounded. That can discussion, it's not on the agenda for open meeting discussion tonight. I was expecting that might come up during the executive session discussion, but again, that need not happen in executive session because there's nothing confidential about that kind of discussion.
Agreed. So might I propose the addition of a 5G to discuss the logistics around interviewing candidates at the planned 8/26 special meeting.
Is everybody How does everybody feel about that?
I'll second.
All right, do we need a motion for that, John?
Yes, to
Okay.
add something to
So
the
you
agenda.
made the
So
motion.
that, please consider that a motion.
Okay, great. All right,
I'll
thanks, Sarah.
second.
And Ashley, you're still seconding it. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, and there's no other discussion, I'm assuming? All right, thank you. Okay, so now we are moving on to public comment. If there's anybody in the room, remember that public comment's an opportunity for the public to comment, not a place for dialogue. You have 3 minutes. Please tell us who you are and your residence.
My name is Joe Major, White River Junction, and I am the current treasurer here at the town of Hartford. And that's why I'm here. You are about to, as a select board, undertake probably the most influential thing to the town, and that's the budget. And for many of you, it will be the first time you will undertake that process. We do have a bit of an issue. The finance department is working, because of staffing, at either a 75 or 50% rate right now. And so they will be a bit overtaxed. I will tell you, Gail, the finance director, is a tremendous resource. And I would say that to use her, but use her sparingly. I will also say that you have one employee, and that is the town manager. He is very experienced in this, and also use him exponentially. This can be a tedious and sometimes boring issue, the budget, but vitally important. So given that, all of you, except as I look at the dais, Mary and Ida have gone through this, and you probably will have one more person who may or may not have gone through this process. So realize that a lot of homework will have to go into this. Come prepared, debate the items on the budget. I can remember Mike Hoyt and I debating on the parking meters. I won that debate because we will have parking meters now. But remember to come prepared, remember to be concise, and use your resources, Gail and Town Manager Haverstock, as much as you can. They are tremendous resources. So thank you. And of course, myself. I will be available for you as well. And you should have my number or email. So please feel free to use that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Is there anybody online? No? Okay, and we will close the public comment, and we will move on to select board comments and announcements. Can I start with you, Ashley? You have
Yes.
anything?
I do. I knew there was something, I couldn't recall it. Tomorrow at Lyman Park, there is going to be they're calling it River Party or River Celebration. There's going to be music, food. It starts at 5 p.m. And it's in coordination with the folks that have been doing the culvert mapping and working with DPW and creating an app that actually tracks all the culverts that we have here in Hartford and the condition of those culverts. And it's kind of a community effort because you can get out in your own neighborhood and participate and map culverts. So yeah, you can learn more about that, learn more about resiliency in the town of Hartford, to climate disaster, and have fun and have free food and listen to some local bands.
Ashley, is this the group that they worked with they called themselves culvert crawlers at Dartmouth?
Yes, yeah, I think that's their unofficial name, but yeah, the event is River Festival, and it's, I'm sorry, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow in Lyman Point Park.
Thank you, Ashley. Ida?
I do, no, I do not have anything.
All right, thank you, Ida. Miranda?
I'm with Ida.
All right, Eric?
No, thank you. Nothing tonight.
All right, and I will say a reminder that on Friday, the fire department station number 2 is having a ribbon cutting at 4 p.m. in Quechee. We did budget for that. And so we're all excited about the fact that we have another station to be able to make sure that public safety is at a premium in our community. And then on the 25th, next Wednesday, the Bugby Ad Hoc Committee will be meeting at the Bugby Center from 3 to 5 to talk about looking at the feasibility study that was produced and where we're going from there.
Sorry, Mary, was that? You said Wednesday, the 25th, but that's the 27th, so I'm just wondering.
Oh, that might be the 27th then, sorry.
Okay.
I might have been looking at a different calendar.
As long as you know it's Wednesday.
Okay,
that's-
yes, it is Wednesday, because John's on that too, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you for that, Ida. All right, so then we will move on to our appointment. Do we have Larson on Zoom? Okay, was he notified? Do you know, John?
Yes, and there's no requirement for a reappointment for someone to be present.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought they still were present. Thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to consider the reappointment of Larson Burns to the Design Review Board for a 3-year term beginning August 19th and ending August 18th to 2028. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ashley.
I move that we, excuse me, reappoint Larson Burns to the Design Review Board for a 3-year term beginning August 19th, 2025 and ending August 18th, 2028.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Miranda, thank you for that. Any discussion? So Larson, if you're listening, you are on the Design Review Board for 3 more years.
Should we vote?
Yes.
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 All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so 5-0. Okay, Town Manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Brian Gazda and Transfer Station staff for the tour they provided to several Select Board members and me on Tuesday, August 12th. It was a fun and educational experience and will be good prologue to upcoming discussions about the future of the transfer station. I had lunch on Tuesday, August 12th with the school district superintendent, Katie Sutton, to discuss areas of common interest and to emphasize the importance of communication and collaboration wherever possible and appropriate. As Joe Major has mentioned, the finance department will soon be at half strength with 2 staffers having departed or soon to depart. A recruitment to fill these slots is underway. Hours of operation for the department may need to be reduced for the foreseeable future. Such changes will be well publicized to minimize any inconvenience. As the chair mentioned, there'll be a ribbon cutting Friday at 4. I'll be there, and we hope as many townspeople as wish can be there as well. There'll be parking accepted along Willard Road, which is a slow incline up the hill to the fire department. And again, as Mary noted, there is the first meeting of the Bugby Building Committee next Wednesday at 3 o'clock at the Bugby Center. So that's very exciting news. As most folks know, there is a vacancy on the town's select board I won't say in executive session. The select board will be discussing this matter later tonight, but I should point out for the record that the town has received 5 applicants, and their names are Tim Ferriel, Kristen DePrizio Pelletier, John Hafner, Lanny Collins, and Michael Eigenbrod. Hope I'm pronouncing those names correctly. Next, I'd like to highlight a few SIGACs from around the departments. The Parks and Rec folks note that the demolition of the Emerge building at Maxfield is almost complete. At the time of the writing of their report, Hammond Grinding had about half of the concrete slab removed, and they anticipate the project to be completed in the next few days. The town clerk is conducting interviews for the assistant town clerk position this week. They've got another number of applicants. The environmental sustainability coordinator had three things I wanted to highlight. Vermont Works for Women's Trailblazer program is going through and going strong with 15 participants. The goal of the program is to provide basic construction skills and knowledge around energy efficient construction. On August 7th, the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator was guest presenter and did a lesson on Vermont's energy code and blower door test. Planning is coming together for the Upper Valley EV Expo that will be happening at Lyman Point Park on September 6th from 11 to 4. This will be a great event for those interested in all aspects of EV vehicles. Hartford Parks and Rec will be displaying their electric mowers and park maintenance equipment. Planning is also underway for the styrofoam collection event happening the morning of October 4th at Moscoma Bank on Sykes Mountain Avenue. This will be a multi-town collaboration, and residents from around the Upper Valley are encouraged to bring their styrofoam. Public Works notes that they met with FEMA representatives regarding mitigation project for Country Lane slope bank improvements. They have investigated several recent road drainage concerns from residents. It seems that our rain events are very heavy and concentrated, which does cause some challenges. DPW also attended a meeting with the town manager and representatives of Sanborn Head regarding the C&D pile at the transfer station. At the White River Junction pollution abatement plant, the DPW folks welcomed Harold Jones as the new assistant chief operator. Harold comes with over 30 years experience in public and private wastewater experience. The DPW director met with the energy sustainability coordinator and an environmental consultant regarding future HVAC improvements to reduce energy consumption at that facility. Again, an update from the solid waste and transfer station. The sale of permits continues to exceed the prior year, with 952 permits being sold as of August 8th, compared with 581 back a year ago, which of course is a 63% increase. Fire department notes that on July 30th, they began staffing station number 2, testing systems and operations, and assembling a final punch list for project completion. And they're all happy to return enhanced emergency services to this area of our community. Hartford Police Department notes that they were awarded a pass-through grant in the amount of $36,000 as part of the Criminal Investigations Division's partnership with Windsor County Special Investigations Unit. HPD and the WCSIU investigate major crimes related to and to include but not limited to human trafficking, sexual exploitation of children, sexual assault, lewd and lascivious conduct with child, sexual abuse of a vulnerable adult, and serious bodily injury to a child. This partnership is critical to HPD to assist us with investigating these crimes occurring within the town of Hartford. HPD hosted a science-based interview and interrogation course. Hosting courses, of course, is a way to get free seats at these events. So we've taken advantage of that. Outreach is continuing with foot patrols at Lyman Point Park, offering services and enforcing park ordinances and checking on trespassing complaints on Latham Works Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, so we are moving on to board report, motions and ordinances. And you are up. Rick. Consider and approve assessor's errors and omissions report.
All right, good evening and thank you. This should not take too long. So we have 3 errors and omissions, 3 corrections to 3 different assessments. The first one is for a property located at 235 Fairbanks Turn. It's map lot 11/5-1, span number 28590-15255, and the owner is Nancy Scott. There's a monopole cell tower located on the property. There's I believe a lease agreement with, I think it's Vermont Telephone, if I'm not mistaken. During the reassessment project, the cell tower was incorrectly valued based on lease information. The thought was that there were 4 tenants on the tower. There's only 1 tenant, so we revised the value, bringing the total value for the property from $2,292,200 down to $1,082,200, a difference of $1,210,000. Excuse me, $1,210,000.
Do you want us to do each motion or wait until you're done?
That's up to you. So if
Might
you
make
want-
some sense to do them each as they come.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anybody have any questions for Rick? Rick, was there the reason, why was there a belief that there were 4 tenants instead of 1? Is that VTEL didn't give you information?
We didn't get much information from VTEL, so the Tyler Technologies employee that valued the cell towers estimated through information that he's had that there were 4 tenants. It turned out there was only 1.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions, Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rick. I just have a question about a sort of a broad process level type question. I'm unclear as to when something's handled through this errors and omissions process that we're doing tonight versus an abatement. So for example, I'm aware of a property in Hartford that was not valued properly because it was thought to be on municipal water and sewer, when in fact it wasn't. That was handled during the grievance, but had that been overlooked by the property owner, would that be something that was handled through this process, or would someone have to then wait to the next abatement cycle? Or I'm just confused about the distinction between when you get to do one process versus the other.
Right. It depends.
Okay.
Depends on the situation. So every situation is different. So we would look at the reason for the change. It's quite possible that in a case like that, it might be an errors and omissions, but it sounds like it was already taken care of during the grievance process.
Yeah, I mean, that was just an example of something that could have been missed and not handled in grievance. It was. But again, so you're basically just saying it's up to the judgment of the assessor to decide whether it's an error or omission, or whether it's a question of judgment and interpretation, which might be handled differently.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Rick? I'll entertain a motion for this property.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ashley, thank you.
I move that we approve the adjustment and assessed value for 235 Fairbanks Turn, span number 2859015-255 from $2,292,200 to $1,082,200.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second that.
Eric, thank you for that. Any other questions for Rick before we vote? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 5-0. All right, Rick, thank you. Go on.
All right. So the next property is located at 27 North Main Street, map lot 45/123-BMC-1, span number 285-090-17007. There's a second, I'll explain what this is. This is the property right up at the corner where I think Tucker Box is in there, and the building is condoized, and 90% of the value for the cell array on the roof, and this is what's in question, is the cell array on the roof. 90% of the value goes to one of the 2 units, and 10% goes to the other unit. So that's why there are two different properties listed here. So the second property is map lot 45/123-BMC-2, span number 285-090-17008. The owner for the first one I mentioned, which is the span number 17007, is Bridge and Main Housing LP. And then the owner for the second unit, span number 17008, is owned by Railroad Row LLC. So this is a similar situation where the income was miscalculated by Tyler, came to our attention from the owner after the fact. So again, I adjusted the values for the two units. So I don't know if you want to take this one at a time or both at the same time.
I think since it's the same area, we'll do both of them at once.
Okay.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Rick on this? All right, I'll
Okay.
entertain a motion, and the motion, you can read both motions. Ida,
I move that we approve the adjustment and assessed value for 27 North Main Street, map lot 45/123 BMC1, span number 285-090-17007, from $1,808,300 to $1,524,800, and that we approve the adjustment and assessed value for 27 North Main Street, map lot 45/123 BMC2, span number 285-090-17008, from $570,900 to $539,400.
all right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ashley, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Rick? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Who would have known that cell towers are so expensive? Okay, so we'll move on to the asset management grant kickoff season.
So we have Cheryl here, and maybe she'd like to join me up by a microphone, and maybe Brian would like to sit next to her. That might be good. Or Chris. Moral support.
It's not you, it's us.
What? I'm sorry, what? Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's my pet project. so-
Oh, it is. Nice to meet you.
So just to lay the background, and Chris can do that, of course. This has to do with requirements that come with the town having applied for asset management plan grants to cover the study and developing of future guidance regarding our Hartford and Queechee water systems. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, I'll let her get into any requirements or so forth, but
Okay.
as we've talked about before, when we asked for permission to apply for this, we have 2 agent systems. These are just 2 of our systems. We also have sewer systems. I'll be coming back to ask for permission to move forward on those. But this is really important for us to plan our finances out in the future. There's been a lot of turnover in employees, and I'm now a senior employee at 5.5 years. So the institutional knowledge of our systems is gone. The record keeping of the past is not digital. It's not easy to, for new people to come on board. And so there's always a higher level of turnover in personnel than there was in the past. So it's very important that before I leave this town, that we're going to have asset management plans. And so it's plug and play, so that someone comes in, they have all the records of our systems, they have a good understanding of our systems. It's important that we have that as well, but there's a plan, so that we're not just constantly coming in and doing reactionary planning and reactionary improvements that, we chart a path forward in an educated, financially smart way. Understand there's always going to be emergencies, but this is the first step to get into that point, and it comes with requirements as far as asset management training, which many of us have had, but it's outdated. But anyway, I will let.
Oh my gosh, can I just take you along with me to all my kickoff meetings? Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Shoge. I work with the capacity development team as a team lead in the Drinking Water Groundwater Protection Division in the state of Vermont. We are tasked with the very important mission of working towards building the technical, managerial, and financial capacity of our water systems here in Vermont. And one of the ways that we do that is through this asset management program, where we provide up to $50,000 in forgivable loans for systems to develop these asset management plans, which, as Chris mentioned, yay, Chris, is basically a plan, a report that captures and inventories all the assets that a system has. It dives into a condition assessment for any asset that is over $1,000. It looks at those assets and looks at their replacement costs, not just the cost of the asset itself, but the cost of installation. And it provides this usually in the form of Excel, sometimes in a software system, depending on whether a town wants to invest in an asset management software system. And then it also looks at any risks that each asset might have. So it'll look at the probability of an asset failing, then the consequence of that failure. So if it's, the storage tank failing, that would probably be something that would need to be addressed very urgently, and the risk of that would push it up as a priority project to consider, versus if it was, some valves, they might go down a little lower on that priority list. So essentially, you're working with your engineer, your contract engineer. In this case, it's Dufresne Engineering that is working both for Hartford and Quechee. Am I saying Quechee?
Quechee.
Quechee. And Quechee. And providing this system, this report to you that will list out any of your risky assets, what that might cost, what you might want to consider focusing on in your 5-year funding plan, in your 10-year plan. And that just provides a very sustainable way for a system to look at their infrastructure and say, hey, okay, in the next 5 years, we may see the well needs a replacement. That's going to cost $1 million. I'm just throwing out a number here. It's probably much more than that. Chris can tell us. A lot of money. And then it gives the town a chance to think, how are we going to fund that? Are we going to take a loan? Do we need to raise rates? Do we need to do all these things to get this money in place? And keeping in mind, you always have to have the emergency reserve fund. But this just proactively helps your system think through how to go about doing it. And so for this, I'm so excited that both Hartford and Quechee came in at the same time, because between the two systems, that's almost 10,000 people that you're reaching. And so you're thinking very sustainably on how to provide safe drinking, reliable water to these 10,000 people now and into the future. And so just like Chris said, one of the big problems facing systems domestically all around the country and even internationally is we're having a lot of people retiring, and that leaves sort of a gap, and then new folks coming in may not know what a system looks like, and you're starting from scratch. So we're really excited that you've taken this on. As I said before, it's $50,000 up to $50,000 for forgivable loan. So between these two systems, you guys are doing a great job of getting $100,000 to your users in forgivable loans. So basically free money. Nothing is ever free. So the cost of it is making sure that the asset management plan meets guidance 26 And that's sort of what the state, we're in this to make sure that the engineer is adhering to that regulation. I will resend it to you, John, and you can
Mhm.
share it with the board. That's the overarching regulation. We just need to make sure all those check boxes are hit. And then in order to be eligible for the forgiveness, one board member and an operator need to attend a 3-day workshop that's usually held over 3 months. It's an asset management training workshop. It's usually held, like this year, it's August, September, October. They've already started, so we're a bit late to go into it for this year. But if you did it next year, that's probably going to be in line with when this asset management plan hopefully is complete, barring, finding all those hidden valves and assets. But yeah, that's essentially what the meat of the asset management plan is. I usually come in and ask the board and the operators and anyone in the room why they decided to focus on an asset management plan and what they're hoping to get out of it. But I think Chris knocked that out the park, unless anyone wanted to add anything to that. If you have any questions about the AMP process or.
I went through it in Pittsford, and I agree that it's just a great tool to help you think about the future in an orderly way rather than making things up on the fly as you go.
And so it also, a couple selling points, it gains us 25 points when we go for the priority list. 75 points, right?
Yeah.
On the priority list when you apply for a revolving loan fund. So that's great. The other things, we are giving our engineer a seat at our software. So we're trying to make the plan as plug and play as possible. So it's going to be part of our PubWorks software system, incorporated from day one. And then, we all know housing is in shortage here. And right now we have a lot of developers who are like, can I tie in here? Can I not? And we honestly don't know. Our model for our system and hydraulic model's out of date. We're going to update our hydraulic model, and make that more friendly as to infill in areas and what improvements are necessary. Will be much easier to obtain that data. Even if some of it is at their expense, the base data will be available. So that's all positives to come out of this. And then the other goal is just like we'll get into bridges and roads later, I believe, tonight. But the plan is for this to be a living, breathing document that gets updated as either on an annual basis or as projects are developed or done. So, or conditions change. It's something that shouldn't just be done once and shelved. It should be part of our living document, how we chart our path forward. So.
And there is a requirement in guidance 26 that an asset management team is formed that includes, members from the board and from the system and the operators. So that's something that you would definitely need to, dive into if you want this to be something that's, like Chris says, something that's usable for the future, not just sitting somewhere gathering dust. And one of the things that we require, the good thing about doing the asset management plan is you do it once, but you can receive those 75 priority points, at least as of now, into perpetuity for any SRF construction project that you're applying for. They will be asking to see the priority list of the asset management plan to make sure that that's a priority project coming in for the construction loan. So having it updated annually is probably a good practice for the future as well. And then we have a couple of other programs in capacity development that I just wanted to plug, just to consider. I'm sure Chris and Brian know them already. But the leak detection program, we offer free leak detection through a contractor every year. That's underway. So again, this would be something you could apply for next year. It's just a simple form that you need to fill in. And then based on how many systems are coming in, we evaluate who gets a couple of days of service with the contractor. We have a contract with Quantified Ventures, who I believe are working with Brian and on the Quiche rate study. And so that's a contract that we have that's outreach to small and to rural systems here in Vermont. And that's something that we will be continuing to invest money into, because we're seeing that the contractors are able to go around to systems and actually deep dive into any technical, managerial, or financial needs that a system may have. And there will be several rates training workshops that will be held from summer, well, probably fall this year through the summer of next year. We have contracted with EFCN, and they will be holding about 8 workshops across the state of Vermont. Those are usually day-long workshops that focus on rates training. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't done one already, try and go and do one, because especially with Creechy coming up with this rate study, it's a way for you to walk in partnership with the system users and explain why thinking about rates is so important and why we need to be focusing on sustainable infrastructure and our assets. And unless you have questions for me, that's my little spiel for the kickoff meeting.
Any questions? Do you have a question, Eric?
I have a comment.
Okay.
May I offer that?
All right.
Thank you. Thank you both. I would just say that you had me at asset management plan. It's an easy sell for someone with my background. So I appreciate this opportunity, and this is brilliant.
I have a question. How do you decide on your projects? I mean, what takes priority?
Currently,
Yeah.
because we don't have a real asset management. I would say problems, leaks, continuous leaks,
Yeah.
water quality issues, age in pipes,
Yeah.
We have an Excel sheet that lists pipes and how old they are and lengths. And it's just attacking the
Right.
list. Downtown actually went before other lines that were ranked higher because it was in a TIF district and it was fancy and nice,
Yeah.
Would an asset management support that? Maybe not necessarily. It would have caused a hard, conversation, an educated, hard conversation about where we spend our money. Like going forward, it will just be nice to have a asset management plan that isn't biased or doesn't have political reasons behind it. It is just straightforward facts and numbers for everyone to consider.
Does, I know there's been some confusion in the town in the last few years about whether we have any mapping of our water system.
So we don't have access to the mapping that was done, and it's highly inaccurate, and valves will be on the wrong side of the road and so forth. We have the data. It's already out of date. We've had several projects go through. Previous administrations didn't keep up with the GIS software, so we lost access to it. We've gone to straightforward CAD so that we can do preliminary work in-house and use it in a more useful manner for our purposes. But this asset management plan, the engineers have jumped the gun a little bit, knowing that they feel confident this is going to go through. Part of this asset management plan is they're out there GIS in it right now. So it will be accurately mapped, not I wouldn't even call the last map and survey grade. It was really rough. So
Thank you, Chris.
we'll have a good map.
Okay. Are there any questions online, Miranda? No? Do you need anything else from us?
Nothing. I will see you all probably at the 60% mark when the AMP is done. And then when the final report is presented to you by the engineer, we usually come in and sit in on that meeting. And then we will have a closeout meeting where I will come again and chit chat with you a little bit. But if I am available at any time, if you have questions along the way, if you have complaints along the way, I can be your ear, and I'm, always available. John has my contact information, and you can always call me too. I still will pick up the phone. I know my
good to hear.
younger colleagues prefer like Teams or text, but I will do cold calls, no problem.
That's great.
I've dated myself, so.
Well, thank you so much. And Chris, thank you for your dedication to getting this to I really appreciate how much you have followed through on this and your dedication to getting this done.
No-brainer, so.
And yeah, well,
Someone had to do it.
yeah. My follow-up question though was, you said that there is a document, the requirements that you're gonna send along to John, that John will
Yes.
pass on to us, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, that's not something we already received, is it, John? Did I miss?
No, no.
We do have the requirements.
Okay.
But
It definitely at the beginning process, we do send it out. But then, things get lost in the time it takes to sign a contract and get all the ducks in a row. So
Yeah,
I'll
a
just
copy
put-
of that would be
I'll
great.
send it,
Sure.
so it's at the forefront of your thoughts as you begin this process. And I really encourage you as the board to, to get involved as much as possible. Like the engineers definitely know what they're doing, but we've noticed that the product looks slightly different the more engaged the board is. Because you know your system, you know your town, you know what the priorities are, and that can only enhance frameworks that the engineers might have. So I strongly encourage you to participate as much as you can, because that does definitely show up in the asset management plans. And I love reading the final reports. They are really long, but I love reading them because every system is different. We sometimes get an AMP for a system serving 200 people, but they have all the same requirements, the maps, the inventories, the condition assessments, the risk profiles, and then seeing one for 7,000 people like Hartford is a whole different ballgame. It's much, much thicker, but it's also just a very good way to understand where a system lies and where their infrastructure needs are. So thank you for going on this journey. I know it'll be a long one. It's a time commitment. I thank the operators and Chris and Brian for their work in it, because it's really nice to have champions in a system already aware about the importance of such a tool.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Really nice meeting
Great
you.
to see you.
Really nice meeting you.
Okay, and now we'll talk about the highway division's plans for the future. Go from water to roads.
Yeah, so I can just take a couple of seconds to tee this up for Brian and Chris. As you may remember at the June 29th workshop, the board generated a work plan, which was formally adopted on the August 5th meeting to help the board and staff plan for select board meetings into the future. Hearing from DPW regarding long-term plans and capital needs for the highway division, and then later the water and wastewater divisions was identified as a priority. And so that's why DPW is here tonight to talk about the highway division.
Guess I just need to share.
Just allow. I press allow. Did it work?
Oh, okay. Let me do that. I'm slowly but surely learning how to do this. Here we go. Hopefully. Okay. And I need to go back. So as John mentioned, we've been debating this. I think we even talked about it last year, John, doing it last year. Was giving basically an overview of capital projects. We have the various different divisions within the Department of Public Works.
I think the asset management plan for water will cover a lot of that as we go on. So, that'll be the genesis for creating future capital projects for those two divisions, two systems within the water division. So tonight we just wanted to start off with highway. This is the one that is taxpayer funded. We sort of got during the budget season coming up, I was thinking about this and how best to frame it for you so that I didn't want to dive too deep into the details with it. I wanted to give you more of that 25,000 foot overlook just tonight. And the projects that are on here, we have a detailed, we have our capital improvement plan that every year, and we're going to go through that process again this year, John.
Yes.
We're going to review
Yes.
that. So you'll see this in a more condensed form. I just sort of kind of blew it up for you a little bit. And what I wanted to try to do was just try to give you some challenges on, liabilities or, the limitations, if you want to say, that we have within that. And go from there. It's kind of hard to think it was 2 years ago we had all that flooding out on Murphy Road, with that. So, just very quickly, you'll see a lot of this during the budget process, just, and this is just staffing level. This is just the highway division. Later, when you see the chart for organizational chart for the department, it's bigger. One of the things that I wanted to get into touching is just the roads and the road system and the confusion. I came from New York, and it took me a year to figure out Vermont road systems with class 2 and 3 and 4 and all the different stuff that we have here. So I broke it down into what I call governmental levels. Okay, you have like your federal, state, then local. So you just take a look at the numbers that I put there are coming off of the we have the 2022, the official Vermont, they'll put maps out, our highway maps. We have that. We also have our annual certification that we do every year. And then Chris has a very detailed line striping list that we use, because what I had to do is go back in some of these numbers of how many, especially within our class 3, and I'll go to that. Within our class 3 roads, we have a total of 108, but how many were paved and how many were gravel? So just backing out some of the math, figuring probably about 98% accurate here. With what we have there, and then total for class 4. So put it all together, we have approximately 138 miles of road. And like you said, it's commonly acknowledged throughout the state that we have the most miles of roadage in the town with that. How to jump into it, how to break it out. So I just, wanted to go in, I figured let's just sort of kind of break it down by paved roads and gravel roads. As you go through here, and we can get into it more. There was a study done, a road assessment in 2018. Was it, Chris?
Work was done 2016 to 2017. The report issued in 2018.
We've had some, like as with water, some just the validity of some of how they were put forth. So it's a basis for what we use, but it's not an exact report that we're actually going by with the roads. I think we've been Chris has tried to go and, we take a look at the connector roads, as you want to call them, the major roads, and then work off from there. So you'll see like when, we do Queechee Heartland Road, we've done some small side streets off of there. So this way we know we're getting a contractor into an area and try to, doing a productivity, keeping them productive in the same area with that. So we've been working off of that over the last few years. It's been better since I started here. Has been funding. That's the key thing. You're not going to fix your roads without money. We have to fund them. The 2018 report had about $1 million was needed every year, and that's been sort of what we've been gauging off of what we need for that. If you don't fund it within the budget, the roads are going to continue to deteriorate. This is really as simple as that. And then I go into a little bit farther in regards to where we talk about challenges and limitations. I took let me just jump back then, like about 5 miles of road is what I've been averaging. I took Chris's numbers and whatnot. So if we can do about 5 miles of paving with what we have, we're on about a 14-year life cycle of touching roads. Okay. Is that good? Is that bad? Some of the work that we're doing really has like a 7 to 10 year, or even a 5 to 7 year,
Right.
when you're just milling and paving what we're doing. So we're really stretching out the time in between roads here.
My rule of thumb had always been about 10 years.
you know,
Give
so
or take.
we're really kind of stretching that out. And that could change, obviously, with the different roads that we get, how much we can do. I'm just looking at like this last year, this average of about 5 miles of getting road work done. Limitation and challenges, obviously, this is the one, you know, we have 2 primary contractors, Pike and Blacktop. You know, they're the ones who put the bid in for that. We had the conversation today just in regards to, I know Eric, you had mentioned about, you know, bundling, like doing 2 or 3 years, the pros and cons of that. You know, the work that we're doing along with, we're trying to tie in V-Trans Road and Aid grants, which gives us a ditching monies to do ditching along the paved roads. I think it would make it difficult to do a multi, like a 2 or 3 year, you know, put it up to bid every 2 to 3 years, unless we made that a 2 to 3 year capital project. It would be a little bit too much, I think, for our staff to be able to go in and do the culvert work, the ditching work, to get all the miles. If we're looking at 15 miles of road, say every 3 years that we're doing. I don't think we would be able to do that currently today with the staffing that we would have to do that. You know, Chris is on the opinion that he believes the contractors would like it better that way, but I think we would have to discuss that with contractors too, in regards to whether they have the capacity to do that, given that they're basically the 2 contractors in our region here that are doing not just, you know, they're doing paving for V-Trans, they're doing paving for other municipalities. So, you know, for paved roads, this is the high altitude of what we're looking at. Funding, staffing, doing the work that we need to do to get done, and going from there with that, you know, that portion of it. So I don't know if you have any, want to just do it one by one, or if you have any other questions for the paving portion of it, what we're looking at for capital projects. Chris wants to chime in.
Well, okay, I'll chime in a little bit. First I'm seeing it, so I'll just make a note that when you look at those staffing levels, a couple things, because I'm the Debbie Downer, the reality check. A lot of those are shared employees amongst the other divisions. And when it comes to administrative, and then when you talk about staff, understand that highway crew is one of the primary crews that's out there on water main breaks, putting the road back together, digging the holes. So we are stretched compared to years past. That's one thing I just want to put out there. The next thing is when we talk about we have a paving plan done in 2018. It's a very subjective paving plan. It has human interpretation into the conditions of the roads, including some of the snowplow operators, which can lead to bias. When we talk about creating asset management plans, we're going to talk about roads and bridges, but at some point, I would like to be back here to ask for an unbiased look at our highways pavement conditions and get a good baseline on their conditions. Yes, we can see how bad they are, but it's still the visual inspection process that was used for that can be subjective, depending on, you have different people rating different roads. There are automated ways using LiDAR and so forth, technologies today where companies can come in and scan your roads and do a very unsubjective. And we don't have the personnel to go out there and walk every mile of road and give us a fair, unbiased condition report on them using that method. So something for the future to think about on that end. And so again, we're using a very old condition report on the roads that was from the very first year was diverged away from and then was not fully funded. So as we get into planning our infrastructure in the future, let's keep that in mind with the roads and the need. The other thing is that report, that $1 million, does not include the culvert replacements, the ditching and so forth. Those are all things that as the storms are increasing in severity, for instance, I'm sure you've all heard about the reports on Hill Ridge and so forth. That was 4 inches, almost just about 4 inches of rain in under 45 minutes. You know, a 100-year event would be about 5.96 inches over 24 hours. So you're subjecting land that's on a 15+% grade all the way up to the top of the hill to a sudden storm event. So that's worse than a typical 100-year event. That's a flash flood event. That's more like what happened in Texas. So our infrastructure was never designed for that, was never hardened enough for that. So as we look at paving projects, we are trying to address those things as we go. So, should there be a separate budget for that down the road? Perhaps, but let's just food for thought.
That's what I'm saying. We just wanted to keep, this is all like we'll get more into that in the details when we do budget presentation and as we move forward. So that's where there's a lot to this. And that's why I just wanted to try to keep it higher level for just right now. And so that way we're gonna have to lead into this and go down the road. It's educational process, if you want to say, and learning about all this. The next one that we go on to obviously is our gravel roads. And the identification of, since my time being here for gravel roads is when which ones are bad, right? So we have historically the ones that are bad. And then as Chris talked about drainage issues, there's a hydraulically segregated.
So
We're required by the state to fix certain sections of our gravel roads for ditching and whatnot like that. So
it's the MRG program. It's the hydraulically connected road segments that are within 300 feet of a stream
upper
or water body.
Right.
So that's what we get the grant under. So when you hear we're using the grant money to ditch along a road that we're also paving, it is a hydraulically connected road segment that we are trying to complete compliance for the state on that at the same time as doing the paving project. We've also used it on dirt roads as well.
And so like this year, working with that, we've done Bliss, Hathaway, and Sugar House Road. And which approximately comes out to about 1.5 miles of road. Staffing, we're building that team for them to go out, with the highway foreman, and we have 2 equipment operator 2s now. And we're building that team where we can get the staff out there to go out and do the ditching and do what we need to do right for that, and get that going, and just making sure that, as Jeremy said today, we're fixing roads now that we hopefully shouldn't have to go back and touch for many, many years, instead of working on something and then have to touch it again in the next rain event. So.
Ashley, you have a question?
Yeah, I just was curious about talking about the hydraulically connected roads, and how there's that state requirement. Does that always or often align with our priorities and what we want to be doing, or is that sometimes
so
forcing us to do work?
The compliance is a requirement, and we've joined up. There's only 2 small towns in the state of Vermont who haven't joined up and signed on to this, because it does provide the grant money to fix them. Does it always align? Believe it or not, the rating system has most of our roads in the green right now. Of course, it can change after one rain event. So we use the grants on roads that we plan out in ahead of time and keep the proper documentation and paperwork on to get reimbursed. Some of the roads, like you just mentioned, could we have applied for that? No, but that's reactionary work that we have to do regardless. So how I would phrase it is, if you're looking for our priorities or our paving roads, does it always line up? No. But do we use the grant money to fix an issue? Yes, that will save our pavement. Does that create funds that are then available to do on the gravel roads? Yes, it's
Okay, yeah, that makes
it's a
sense.
mountain. We're trying to chip away at it.
Yeah, thank you.
And so getting into challenges and limitations of this, obviously it's the, just the outlying of where the gravel roads are at. They're typically, they're in the far reaches of the town and the more hillier sections. And by the time you get equipment, staffing, hauling the materials out there, you're just not going to complete as many. You're not going to get the 5 miles like you do with paved roads out of there. So looking back, if we can get, say, 2 miles that would be tremendous for us to be able to do that. To increase productivity, and we're actually going to have this conversation today with Jeremy and Mike Coleman, is that, as additional staffing, if we want to keep it up, we need some additional staffing, equipment, and then the cost for materials, the culvert piping, the stone, to go with it, to, hit our roads that we need to do here. Because if you have 57 miles of road, I mean, if you can, the local roads program, they're saying you should put, gravel down on your road every 3 years, 2 inches. I can, from a rough estimate here, that would probably be $250,000 to $300,000 in just stone material alone that we should be putting down to keep the proper ground, which goes to the ditching, which goes to the grading, which would then help with the drainage and not cause the runoffs for that. So there's a lot to do with gravel roads. Gravel roads are a very big challenge, within the state. I can say this much: we have good gravel roads compared to other towns. I don't know how you were in Pittsburgh, John, but I know in Thetford, our gravel roads here are in a heck of a lot better shape.
One of the keys is having a good grader operator.
Yes, which we actually did training today.
Oh, good.
For grader operators, with individuals today. And we'd like to say we're to move on into the Gate Street. I didn't put much there. I think that one's been talked about enough for there. We're working on the easements. We're still getting there. I think once we get the easements in place, we can release it and put it out for competitive bidding. Actually, today, we actually met with FEMA representatives in regards to this project at Country Lane. This is a remnant from the 23 storm event. And every time you meet with FEMA, things change a little bit.
As do personnel.
We're working with it, but we found out today. So it's going to be, you've got different, what are they called, silos where funding comes from in FEMA. So initially we put it in, we were told we put it in as a mitigation project, a 504 mitigation project. Finding out today that there's only certain funding of it that's going to become the mitigation project. The other portion of it's going to be your public assistance funding. So we've got to go back and do a little work and do an amendment, because the cost for the project is about $50,000 more than what we initially estimated, because we're going to do the additional work to make it so it hopefully doesn't happen again in that section of the road down there. It's like never ending with FEMA, where it's like just keep going and going. They want additional documentation. Abbey Road this is a multi-utility project. It's not just paving. It's also water, sewer, storm. This has been on the capital project list for a while now. And for basically the one area of funding we're still looking for is on the water. On the road and the storm side and the general fund side for that. Within our CIP plan, we've got it identified funding within water and wastewater to do that, but we still need to work on getting funding for the general portion of it, for the road and the storm portion of it. But you'll see that within the plan. When you take a look at the capital plan, you'll see it identified in the general fund, the water, sewer, with that for that project. But there. And then lastly, for this is coming down to, as Chris mentioned, is the other consideration is coming up. And I will be looking to get price quotes for this to see what it costs to put it in the budget for this year for the highway fund. Take that subjectivity out of what the roads are, and it gives him then a very good document to work off of so that we can start putting that road together. It's actually a asset management plan for our roads, if you want to say. Go from there. Road questions before we move on?
I have a question. Roads question. Do we get any kind of priority funding because we have so many roads from the state?
No, your paving grant just gets bigger. And we're on about a 2 or 3 year cycle when we can get a good amount for a class 2 paving grant, which, last 2 have been very, substantial. So next year we won't qualify.
Okay.
The year after, as long as there's enough federal funding going into the transportation fund at the state level,
Okay.
then we can expect another.
There is a state appropriation to every
Right.
town dependent on the number of miles of road.
Right.
And so we do collect that every year.
I think we're about like 290,000, I think that we
Right,
get.
I remember.
So they base that, that's just a revenue that comes in
Yeah.
into the general
We have
fund
to
for that.
approve.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I remember
So-
that mileage. Any other questions on the roads?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So I know we've talked about Gate Street a lot in the past, but we actually haven't talked about it that much recently. So I am curious if you have anything else you can share about the status of that and what the current
Yes.
process is with easement securing.
Yes, we began right after the bond vote with legal counsel, talking through strategies to obtain easements from the 8 landowners we would need them from, maybe 7, maybe 8. One has expressed unalterable opposition, and that might come up the works and require us to litigate. But with respect to the others, they all have seemed to be supportive of the project. Brian and I and Chris have met with most all of them, and we've sent, as I think as recently as about a week ago, easement documents for each of them to sign in exchange for a modest compensation that we've offered each of them. So we're hopeful in the next few days we'll be collecting easements, hopefully all of those except for the one person. And then at that point, the plan is to approach him one more time, letting him know the train's leaving the station. We'd like to work with him and be happy to make concessions that we can reasonably make. But ultimately, we'd have to let them know that litigation is our not preferred alternative. And hopefully, maybe his attorney and our attorney might be able to speak together and work out an arrangement. But that's the current plan.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Are you at liberty to share what this property owner's concerns are with giving an easement?
Well, some of the select board members remember him coming to meetings right before the bond vote. And they didn't seem to be too carefully focused, but just general opposition to the whole idea of it. I think he's enjoyed the quiet of not having that road reopened, among other things. I think he has an inordinate fear that we're going to somehow have an unsightly gravel pile for him and his tenants to look at for years to come, when we think we can do the whole project within a single annual construction cycle. So I'm of the view that if we could talk collaboratively in a room where we could try to address realistic concerns, that we should be able to work something out. But it does take 2 reasonable people who want to get to an outcome. And I guess time will tell whether he is ready to do his share of it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thanks for this presentation. Thanks for getting this on the agenda as well, John and Mary. I have a number of questions.
I wonder if you're aware we're not quite done going through the presentation. He was just asking for questions about roads. We have bridges and other things coming
I have a
up.
number of questions on roads.
Oh, okay.
How about that? Let's start off with, it would be helpful to understand. So as you can gather from the nature of some of the questions that I sent in advance of tonight's meeting, I'm interested in not only economies of scale, like how do we, sort of do projects and make it attractive for a contractor to, given the limited number of contractors in the Upper Valley, make it attractive for them to sign on to a larger chunk of work, and manage larger projects and see if that can be efficient. And so I understand that there's a lot of moving parts to that. But part of what would be helpful for me to understand is sort of the anatomy of a road and what, and so the other part of that is the financing and how we're doing financing in a fair way. So if we're doing something that, if we're financing just resurfacing that lasts 7 to 10 years, maybe coming out of operating budget makes sense. And this is where I think it would be helpful to have the finance director's input as well when she's available. But for longer term things, so for example, if there's subsurface work to be done for some roads that I am aware of and drive on a routine basis, I'm pretty sure that just putting a coat on top of it is going to yield a not so good result in the long term. So there's got to be something happening below that, which feels more like a capital type project, which maybe opens itself up to like medium-term bonds or longer-term bonds or whatever. And so just understanding, like, as we go down through the road surface and look at sort of the broader picture of maintenance on roads, how can we deal with these projects slightly differently and creatively so that we can get like.
So when I first got here, as far as reclaiming roads, so there's different levels of road treatment. Most of our paving plan that we have from 2018, it's basically maintenance paving, it's overlay. Very few of it involves milling. Sometimes you have to mill though because of curb lines and drainage issues, right? There are literally roads in this town that have multiple feet of pavement under them. Okay, so that presents a problem as to where you stop milling. So as far as when you turn into a capital project, when I first got here, we reclaimed some roads and added 6 inches of gravel and paved on top of that. We were able to do that in-house as far as the putting the gravel down and compacting it and preparing it for paving. That's very economical if you can do it, and it does not stretch your paving budget unrealistically. However, under our current environment and level of years of experience, it's very hard for us to do that. We're going to do a test section on old Queechee Road and see how that goes. It's just a short segment, so we're confident we can handle that. If you were to contract that all out, it would definitely be a capital project. Jericho, if you go up to the top of Jericho, it's been very hard to find the opportunity to work that into our budget. The top of Jericho needs to probably be box cut and replaced. That is definitely a capital project, but you get into the bigger conversation. Okay, if it's $1.5 million and it's only serving a few houses up there, do you take on a bond for that expense? Do you use up your bonding capacity? I don't know what the bonding capacity is and where we want to spend our money right now in this town. So I can't make that recommendation. If I was to go up there and repair it right now, we'd probably go up, reclaim it, add 6 inches of gravel and pave it, and realize that is not a 20-year repair. But if I go up and I pave that road, it's going to settle and it's going to be terrible next year. So, you know, bigger conversation to me is, as you want to turn paving projects into capital projects, because the road is that bad, what's the appetite and what's the limitations? Because if I use up the bonding capacity for that, we have some very serious water and sewer projects coming down the pipeline that you're going to be taken away from. So if you can stretch your dollars, do some of it in-house and avoid the capital expense for now, because roads have a shorter lifespan than a water main. You know, bigger conversation.
I mean, and the other thing, one thing I've thought about too is, like you say, we allocate $1 million a year towards road. All of it doesn't have to be, you know, cash and carry that we do that year. I mean, why not look at that bigger bonding project, and we have X amount of money, you know, we're going to allocate $300,000-$400,000 a year in debt service, which gives us maybe that $10 million over, you know, 10, 15 year bid for that, which allows us to do some of that. I mean, that's a conversation, you know, to have just a thought process for that between here and a finance director to take a look at that. But I think to tackle some of those bigger projects, in my mind, we may have to go that route.
I was just going to mention the risk that you run, as happened in my prior town of Pittsford before I got there. The risk you run is to have a bond whose debt service exceeds the life of the road.
Right.
You never want to have your debt service exceed the life of the improvement. So they had a 20-year bond on a lot of 10-year road work. So I know you've mentioned it as well, Eric, we don't want to do that. So that's where we have to look at other debt instruments or
And
terms.
you could also have a lot of roads coming up due all at once. And
That's true.
not have them all paid off for. So you could be kicking a problem down the road, so to speak.
Miranda?
I'm just thinking too about, right, turning some projects into capital improvements, but then what is our like staff capacity for capital improvements?
We don't, right now, we don't have the staff to go and actually take out a major capital project, like we were to go and reclaim a whole section of road. We just, do you want to take on the additional staff? You take on additional staff, it's not just part-time. These are individuals. So you just can't think summer paving season. You have to think winter plowing. What do I need during, because, we're not like a contractor where we're just going to lay people off come November. Right, if they don't have the plowing for that. So it's that balance of between maintaining staff for all of the functions that you do within the department. And when you need to contract out for the work that you can't do for that. As we'll get on, later, you'll take sidewalks as we get in and you take a look at what do we want to build for additional capacity besides summertime maintenance within the department. For snow removal, other things that we want to do. Like for this next upcoming year, we're going to be contracting out a lot of this. We've contracted a lot of the snow removal we do for the sidewalks, a parking lot here. Do we want to take a look at staffing? And maybe do we add on 2 or 3 other individuals full time, which would then give us an additional capacity in the summertime to do projects like this. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One more road related question, which I love gravel roads. But I feel like I have to ask this question. Over a reasonable duration, I don't know what that might be, multiple decades or whatever, what is the cost? So, if you're going to pave a road, there's obviously a large upfront investment, capital investment. But if you look at maintenance costs over a long enough time period, what is for our region, is there a general rule of thumb in terms of a per mile maintenance cost for gravel versus paved?
I did an analysis when I was in Thetford. Like I said, we had about 50 miles of gravel road, and that's where I came up with that $250,000 in materials based on what, Todd Eaton from the local road program. When you take a look at adding 3 inches of gravel down every couple of years, 2 inches of gravel down every 3 years, that wasn't even figuring in equipment and manpower with that. But that, you're not going to do all 50 miles. I don't know.
And that 2 or 3 inches, that's, gravel roads lose, obviously runoff, they lose it, right? So that's where the state gets that number. We obviously haven't been maintaining that level of service on them. So some of our roads are getting low. Our biggest, it's very hard. I haven't seen that number. I'm sure it exists. We can research it, see if it does exist, but it's probably not really accurate for us. Our biggest problem with our gravel roads right now is the storm events. It is the drainage. Everything relates to drainage, even on our paved roads. Our pavement where it's falling apart, it always relates to the drainage. The ditch is filled in, the side of the road is just mush all spring and it breaks up. With dirt roads, it's greater berms, it's filled ditches, water going onto the road, running where it's not supposed to be. It all comes down to a lack of we call it manpower, having the time to go do it when we're stretched thin, because I'm not underselling you when I tell you that highway crew is out there fixing water main breaks and all. When you try to, and after they've had a long winter of plowing, they've got comp time and they're burnt out. They need some vacation time in the summer. So getting their head in the right place and ready for construction season is very hard when they're thinking, I've only got time off, right? So it all comes down to manpower and probably a little bit of equipment and having the right manpower. We're in a retraining mode with a lot of employees. So we're in a rebuild mode. And it's hard to sit here and tell you that, because right after COVID was over, we thought we were in a year, we're going to be out of rebuilding mode. But the truth of the matter is people aren't dying to get into municipal work anymore. It's hard to get them. It's hard to retain them. And it's hard to get the ones that are come in qualified. It's not the job for a lifetime. You know, there's factors out there that probably not politically correct to say, but legalized marijuana is a big thing. We have CDLs. You can't. The one job you can't have. Like, there's none of that. Nope. There's no such thing as legal marijuana for our employees. Okay. So you have that, which diverts a lot of people. Pick up the phone. Oh, no, forget it. So you have that. And then you have the political nature of it. Some people love you, but a lot of people hate you out there. You're spending their tax dollar money, and it's just not worth it for a lot of people. So we face that struggle. But it seems like it's getting better, and we're getting staffed and we're getting training. So
we're moving in the right direction.
But the biggest cost and the biggest thing we should really be worrying about on these roads is the infrastructure that supports them being stable, which is drainage. And that is becoming, when I said maybe we need another funding source just for the stone line and ditching and the drainage work, it's because that is becoming a major, major issue. And it's upsetting a lot of people in this town because our infrastructure is not designed for it. It's not built for it. It's been around for 20, 40 years and it worked fine, all but a couple storm events. Now it's multiple events a summer, washing out their yards, bringing dirt into their yards, and they're upset. And, you know, that's something as important as the pavement surfaces. That's something that coming budget cycles looking forward, we need to find a solution as to how to fund it and how to maintain it.
Can we move on to sidewalks?
Bridges.
Bridges and then sidewalks.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, the second component identified was bridges. Governor Krishna's actually, we relocated. I think there was 2 missing. So I came up, we have 26 bridges, 11 of them being what they call long bridges, greater than 20 feet. And then 15 short bridges, less than 20 feet. We have had a bridge assessment done by Stantec. They actually completed it last winter. Just various other things. We got done doing our review and comments back to them in June, I believe it was. You got to, Chris. So we're working on that. One of that is Cheryl mentioned too. Through that, we did identify one bridge, the Quechee Heartland Road Bridge. Actually, we just got the grant today. I think we saw for the engineering for that. So we received a $72,000 engineering grant for that one. So we'll be starting to work on that one.
And the study itself was ARPA funded. So you've
Right.
mentioned the October 31st deadline for completion, which is good news for Gail and finance. She wants that project closed out.
Yeah, I've given them a lengthy laundry list of revisions and additions to it. And at the end of the day, hopefully that will be posted on our website. It'll be a living document that has a lot of background data I've given them to add to it so that everyone moving forward, again, we can maintain it on a yearly basis or as bridges are dealt with, but that will get entered into our future highway cycle. It's got a lot of good information about how much we should be budgeting to maintain our bridges. So,
And once again, though, that comes with a fairly steep price tag. If you take a look at what the study is looking at, I mean, we could be, $200,000 to $300,000 a year as being a recommendation that we put away for bridges, for what we need to take care of them. So that when the day comes that a bridge needs to be replaced or the maintenance that we need to do to prolong the life of it, we have a lot of bridges in this town. This is a lot of big bridges too, that we're responsible for. I mean, thankfully we got the state to do the one over the Wright River. So that was done for us, but that's our bridge. We own that bridge, the VA cutoff bridge. So, we have a lot of assets in the road like that, for bridges. Hoduck Road culvert. This is one where it's a 60-inch culvert pipe, metal, overflows, it floods out. The bad thing we learned from this is that, the pipe sort of dislodged in the ground a little bit, and being very careful when we put it into the ground, we were able to save it. in FEMA standard, we should have let the pipe go, and we could have made a mitigation project out of it. They do not, if the pipe is not damaged, they will not make a mitigation project out of it. So we just had to fix it, pre-existing to what it was. Chris did a big study on the whole, how many acres was it that one point?
It's over a square mile and a half or something.
Of studying, hopefully that we could get a big project out of that, but because the culvert pipe wasn't damaged, we weren't able to get a FEMA mitigation project out of that. But that one we have a structures grant for. We did get another structures grant for that one.
The engineering is almost done on that. We need to, the next step is we have to go see if we can secure easements for it, and wrap it up and have the easements in hand. And then of course we're looking for funding sources. Unfortunately, it predominantly serves Norwich residents, but it does get dislodged and wiped out quite often, and the postal service won't traverse it, and it is the sole emergency access for that area. So while Quechee Heartland Road takes precedence in ours, we do have to make every attempt to move forward to have a safe passage.
And then, that's a major thoroughfare. I think we were surprised by the amount of traffic that goes up and down that road, between the blinking lights into Heartland with that. So, some challenges and limitations. I just tried to, I was brainstorming a little bit for the long bridges. We do go out in the springtime and we try to power wash the bridge, try to get the road salt off the bridges that we can. If there's sidewalks, we'll patch what we need to do. It's really more that surface maintenance that we can do. We wouldn't have the staff to get underneath the bridges and climb and do all the work, and the inspections and whatnot like that. So that's, the challenges and limitations for the long bridges that we have. Short bridges, like I said, I put, the location and the span of it. I think we can do most of the preventive maintenance and probably some minor restorative maintenance on it. But you take the Quechee Heartland Bridge, we're not going to be able to do that, even though to fix that one, that's a capital project that would be outside the scope of what we can do for that. And then, as I mentioned before, the annual budget appropriation, a part of that, it's going to be reflective. And when we get that report and you guys see that, you'll see the dollar amount, and we'll be like, some big numbers in there. But we got to really start thinking about maintaining these assets so they're not pushing the can down the road for that later. So, Chris.
Yeah, I'll just say, even on the short bridges, there's minor things that our staff obviously is not trained or familiar with, such as concrete repairs to abutments and stuff. All those kind of things that are needed right now. There's Daniels, Millers, there's bridge contractors out there who are very, if you want your money's worth and you want to get it done properly, there's a lot of these things that will be in there that should really be contracted out. It's not something inexperienced. Should be. And there's other things that we shouldn't be doing, like the treatment, the waterproofing of the concrete. Like, one of the things I've asked for the VA bridge is the timeline. Like, all the concrete on the surface there should be treated every so many years. So there's going to be things like that we should be better about to avoid having bridges fall apart once we get a brand new bridge.
Sidewalks?
Yeah, let's have questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the last component was sidewalks. We had been floating a number out there in our budget presentation of 12.5, but I just sort of figured there was more. So I reached out to planning and development director, who referred me to Two Rivers, because they've been helping them with their pedestrian plan. So in talking to Rita Sato, we have 15.7 miles of sidewalks, but that does not include the new sidewalk that's going in between the aquatic center, the project that just is being done now. So that's quite a bit of miles. Not all of it's here. Some of it is in Quechee. We're not really, for sidewalk, jump here for snow plow removal, we concentrate here. The Quechee is done by contractor for right now. We try to get out, if wastewater staff can do it. They'll try to get up by Simon Pierce and do the bridge and get that area there. But once again, I may even be thinking about adding that to the contractor list to get that done. Because I know last year, I believe Simon Pierce was actually doing it themselves.
No.
To get it out. So even though they didn't make a fuss of it, but that they were looking to get it done. Right now, within the capital project, if you take a look at highway, you'll see more sidewalk projects listed within our CIP. And I just, like I said, just wanted to give you this is basically just right off the CIP. Just give you a very quick overview of the projects that, Chris we've identified, and with a probable cost of about $1.4 million for capital sidewalk repairs. Some of the, Chris can go into the one from Cumberland Farms to Manning Drive, where the actual plan that the state V-Trans pedestrian bike safety plan costs more than a project. So,
yeah, so that was unfortunate. We had a grant to construct the sidewalk, but after many go-arounds, the pedestrian management plan became so expensive that we could no longer afford to build the sidewalk. However, I will just put a note in here. As part of our Wilder water main project, I'm hoping to incorporate this into it so that it can just get hidden into that project and some of the permanent issues with the pedestrian access kind of, not overlooked, but
kill two birds with one stone.
But if it's got to go because of a water main, then it's got to go. So there'll be a little bit more lenient is the thought. There are other issues on Hartford Ave. That project was actually larger than that section. I mean, there's the section past the cemetery that's underwater a lot. I've tried to work with the state about a fix for that. Unfortunately, we'll probably have to wait till they do a lane diet project they're scoping up in that area to correct that with the bike lanes and all that kind of stuff. And then North Main Street, I have mixed feelings about that. I wanted a multi-use path coming down the hill, but we're looking at alternatives. The roundabout project at Route 4 is coming through, so it's kind of hard to plan when V-Trans is interacting with it all, but some of it will be taken care of by that, right in front of where the low barrier shelter is being built. And then, so that will limit our exposure lengths, but from Church up is a priority. That definitely needs to get done. But
And meanwhile, there was some good patching done. We appreciate that.
Sorry, there's gonna be a new roundabout at the Route 4 junction?
yes. Wyatt waited and when they just went through that.
Correct.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. That'd be like asking me, why did they repave around the roundabout that was just put in?
I think it probably comes down to federal funding, probably the funding cycles and the projects. So. I think we've already touched on most of them. Like Chris said, I mean, the key thing is for us is sidewalks of this capacity. It's just finding a funding source for them and trying to tie them into it.
To pay to walk on the sidewalk.
Well, I mean, the downtown, a lot of it's been through TIF funding. It's trying to take a look at and seeing what's about, what's there. And I did speak to the planning and development director. We just have to try to see if we can incorporate, she has to look at her funding, what's allowed, like especially for the North Main Street, what can we do? Does it tie, economic development criteria? So these are all things we're gonna have to take a look at, but that's just not a DPW. We have to work with planning and development on that too.
But that's only in the areas where it is in the TIF district.
Correct. So. And then this is just I just wanted to give you just a quick list of the roads that we have identified for this year. And then this is from the budget from last year. So there's been a lot of changes to it. Hopefully we've had monies left over. We're going to be probably doing some more roads this year. Hopefully we'll be able to get some done. But just to give just a little overview of the roads that we're looking to have done this year for paving. So they're on the list. And that was it.
Okay.
So,
Any last questions from that?
and I will stop sharing.
Thank you. I have a question about, in the context of winter maintenance, does the town have a definition or definitions for service levels for the roads and the sidewalks?
I'm not, what do you mean by
For example, I remember in Pittsburgh, we had a policy as to whether or not we are a clear roads town. In other words, an expectation that road would be cleared and plowed within a certain number of hours from a storm's cessation, for example.
Right, it might be something along the lines of, 85% of the time, within X number of hours after the storm, the sidewalk here is cleared or whatever. And I asked this question after you've talked a lot about staffing, and I fully appreciate that. But if we're going to understand what the staffing needs are, we have to understand what the service needs are as part of that equation, I think.
I can tell you this much, the way practice has been, my understanding of it, especially, speaking with Jeremy, who's been doing this for many, many years here. He's a clear road guy. He wants to see the roads cleared. So we'll go out. If we get into a longer storm event, there'll be the time where, like V-Trans, we're saying, okay, we've been doing this for 20 hours now. We're going to quit at 10 o'clock and then everybody will be back in at 4. But as far as he's concerned, is that we're plowing continuously through just to keep that going.
I'm going to stop it right there. We're not a clear road policy town. That's physically impossible. So, well, our plow routes are over 7 hours long, one way, back way. So, and everyone's got a route. So we're not a clear road policy town. We're not staffed for that. Due to the main and the larger events, and I wish Jeremy was online, he could stress it more. The main routes, the school routes, those are the ones they will try to keep clear. If you're on a side street, then you will not be prioritized. If they have to keep going up and down the main collector routes for emergency vehicles and stuff, that will get prioritized.
I remember the one in Pittsburgh said, ladies and gentlemen, we live in Vermont. We're not going to aspire to clear roads, but we'll do the best we can. But there were a lot of benchmarks that they did have. And so it'd probably be no trouble for us to compare notes with other municipalities and see if we can find what's been time tested in other communities.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we should aim for a clear roads or policy or whatever. I'm just trying to understand. And the same question applies to sidewalks, because I have heard over the last 5.5 months plenty of complaints about sidewalk clearing. And I know that you share staff and so on, but at some point, sort of setting some benchmarks and definitions, and then being able to aim toward and say, okay, well, if we want to achieve those things, if this is what we want as a community, this is what we need for staffing to support that. It seems to be an equation that would work for my brain anyway.
And once again, then that goes to summer maintenance, winter maintenance.
Yeah.
So if we're going to gear up, can we utilize staff for both? Right. So part of the discussion I had today with Jeremy, with the highway foreman, is that, do we look at that? And that's my concern, is that we just can't hire for one season. We have to be able to employ these individuals throughout the whole year. And is there enough work for them to be doing for, during that portion of that?
And if not, that's why you talk about contractors or expanding the list of their duties.
So, we're not a construction company. We just can't, take on and then lay guys off later or girls off later, then go from there, So taking a look at that, it's challenging. It's.
By the way, in response to our recent discussion about sidewalks and maintenance, I have heard some concern expressed also that maybe the select board is not feeling so supportive of sidewalk work, when in fact they remind me there's an important quality of life issue, but more importantly, public safety issue associated with sidewalk construction. A lot of areas of town where people walk in the road, and that's not optimal. So that's just, I wanted to put those 2 cents out there.
But as we, like say, as we create sidewalks, so it does, if the expectation is to, let's just take the new project. If that expectation is that's going to be cleared this winter, then that will require equipment, that will require maybe additional staffing, or is this going to take longer for, sidewalks to get cleared for that, so it's just that portion of it, the public safety side of it, but on our side of it too. When I come back to you and say I need $50,000 for a snow grader, you know why? Just so we can clear the areas downtown within the budget, so.
Balance.
I have one last question. We have more ice events these days. Do you salt the sidewalks or what?
It depends on our equipment, Mary, and what the status of what we have running and not. The side, since I've been here, the sidewalk equipment has been very finicky.
Okay.
And the downtown area has been trying, the contractor's done it. So even last year, they had issues with their equipment. So it is trying to get out and also just putting some type of material down to break it up too. So.
But hopefully not corrosive to concrete.
Correct.
Right.
Well, we try to use the non-stuff, but when you only got rock salt and you got ice, you have to put it down.
Yeah.
You got to use it. So.
Yeah.
But.
Thank you. Any other questions? This is very interesting and pretty scary.
Well, it just wanted to be a precursor to other things. Okay. And like you said, we can always have time to get into the weeds later down the road.
And there's almost everyone at a budget meeting who always asks about our paving in our roads. So now I understand a little bit more about how few miles we get out of each season. So
I do have one quick follow-up question. Just in light of the comments about staffing and challenges, recruiting and retaining, definitely appreciate those factors. Can you just remind me, are we fully staffed at the positions that we have funded now, or are there's a vacancy?
We have one vacancy in the highway right now.
One vacancy in highway.
Right.
And how long has it been vacant?
Probably going about 2 months.
Okay.
So.
And prior to that, you were fully staffed for a period of time?
Yeah, for probably this winter, we were fully staffed.
Okay.
So compared to 2 years ago, we were about 50% staffing in the highway department, the winter of 23, 24.
Is that the fellow who has come on board, left, come on board, left, come on board, and then left again?
I think it's 3 times. Yes, he's twice for DPW and once for Park and Rec. So that he's moved on.
3 strikes and you're out.
So.
I know. That speaks to how challenging it is to
right.
recruit.
And I mean, that's, as Chris alluded, that's the key thing, is that we can say we're going to fund staffing, but it's finding the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the 2 trucks that we have in the budget. What we have coming in don't require CDLs, the plow trucks that we have coming in.
And that's the drug testing CDL?
Yeah, that's the commercial driver's license.
Oh, okay.
So that's a part of for the motor vehicle, federal motor vehicle. So if you have your CDL license, you're subject to drug testing. And so at the federal level, marijuana is still considered a controlled substance.
And who decides whether the testing happens, the state or?
There's a company, we actually go through VLTC. They sort of and there's it's DISC. We'll just get notification that we'll be out next week. And here's a couple of individuals that need to be, we can't tell them. They show up to work and we say, okay, you need to be here at a certain time and you have to provide your testing for that. Controlled substance, and sometimes they do it for alcohol.
But with these non-CDL vehicles, it gives you greater latitude to who can operate them, for example.
Correct.
Okay, and so because that's compelling with the information you shared before, Chris. So like you think some of the main factors that it's hard to recruit are requirements around commercial driver's license, and then just the political nature of the role.
Very political world. I mean, why would you subject yourself to it? I mean, I mean, I question myself. Why
You tell us, Chris, why would you?
You're not the only one.
I can tell you this much, Vermont is a lot friendlier than New York. I can tell you.
The other thing is you have to understand it's a lot of people, they pay town employees too much. You have to understand it's a competitive world out there. Headhunters contact me. Like our employees, they can walk away, go get a job that gives them Christmas bonuses, quarterly bonuses, like profit sharing, a little more freedom to work from home, a little more freedom to do this. Like it's not the old world where this is necessarily the easiest path to go down. So, yeah.
I guess I have another question following that up is, what do, I guess, like the guys on the ground, how are they getting that type of feedback? Because I could see as like department heads, like I'm sure you receive a lot of emails, but like, what does that feel like for like the on the ground crew to get?
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that?
we get a lot of compliments from individuals. I mean, in wintertime, you'd be amazed at the amount of cookies and stuff that is dropped off and people bring stuff like that. So, I mean, as a community here, they're very responsive and very appreciative for the work. It's more positive than negative.
Okay.
It's refreshing. It's really
I don't know if Chris agrees, but.
Because he's just only going out to the problem areas. But believe me, I can tell you, New York, it wasn't that way. It was the exact opposite in New York. People,
I mean,
it was good.
So I just think this is an interesting conversation. I'm thinking about like what's a, like what's a changeable like variable that we can like help with in this situation. And I don't know, I think creatively as the town leadership, like if there's ways that we can think about, I don't know, PR for our staff. We have a communications director who does internal town communications like that.
I think, pay is always important, but I think though too, it's like with the mechanic. If he has a request for something that can make him more efficient, like we did the hoses for our connector hoses. It's that type of stuff during the budget process that we try to put in for a tire changer. It's the type of things like that just, if we can make them more productive, they feel appreciative of that. We give them the tools that they need to get their job done. Okay. And I think if we help them with that and just through the budget process, that helps out tremendously.
And of course, union contracts are going to be up, I think, in a couple of years.
We got one more year,
Yep.
27, and I think it'll be doing for that, but I think if they feel appreciative, I can tell you Jeremy's very good at that. We do a lot of appreciation, just buying pizzas, after they've been plowing for 15 hours, that they know they can go back to the garage and have stuff like that. It's that for a lot of these guys, that's, what they need, so.
Thank you. Very helpful. We
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank
Do you have an
guys.
answer to that one, Chris? Of what we could do? You look like you were gonna.
No, I'm an anti-social media guy, so if you could get rid of Facebook and all that stuff, you'd stop a lot of the problems.
Just don't look up. That's the answer to that.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. That was really helpful.
We only got like 4 more to do.
Well, we're ready.
Okay, so John, you're up on the recap of town's tax sale.
Yeah, I can be brief about this. It has been several years since the town has engaged in the tax sale process. We've discussed in the past the importance of getting back to that discipline, not just for the town's best interest, but really for the best interests of taxpayers across the board, those who pay on time and those who are falling behind. As I point out, we really don't do any favors to people by letting them get further and further delinquent, because then it gets to a point where they can never recover. So anyway, the tax sale process was restored this year. We started out with 60 seriously delinquent properties. And I'm glad to say that by the time of the tax sale last week, that number was down to 11, because we were able to work out with agreements or payments in full from the other 49 owners. So of the 11 properties that went to tax sale, 5 were purchased by a town bidder. And the other 6 were left for the town to bid on, which we did in concert with the attorney's advice to do so, unless a particular property was in terrible shape. And I had visited all those 11 properties and had not identified one of those. In fact, there was one that I would not have bid on behalf of the town, but that was one of the 5 sold to this third-party bidder. So that took us off the hook. The owners of all these properties sold at tax sale, including those sold to the town, still have 1 full year of possession and 1 full year from the August 14th tax sale date to redeem their property by paying off the debt together with the costs and legal fees plus interest, which now accrues at 1% per month under state statute. And of course, we certainly hope that they do so. In my experience, they often do. So stay tuned, I suppose, for more as the year unfolds from now. But I can tell you again that the town has been the successful bidder on 6 parcels in town, one of which is a single family home. 3 are mobile homes. 1 is a piece of raw land, and 1 is the West Hartford Meeting House. So that's
Any
that.
questions? Anybody? Is there anybody on? Question? Okay, thank you, Miranda. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, wait, I actually thought of one thing.
Yeah.
Were any of these homes owner occupied at that time?
Yes, yes. In fact, all of the properties, except for the meeting house, have been owner occupied. The one exception being that property we discussed in executive session a while back, whose owner was deceased. That property is vacant, but again, we bid on it on the theory that there's still very much substantial equity in that house.
Follow up to that.
Ashley?
Will the owner be able to continue to occupy during this year that they have to catch up?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's made clear to them in reports of sale that the attorney will be sending to all of the people whose property were involved in the tax sale.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Now we're moving on to 5E, provide budget guidance to staff.
Yes,
You want to take a break?
oh, that's fine. Yeah.
We'll reset for
I don't think it'll inconvenience anybody in the audience.
6-7 minutes. Okay. So, don't
Yeah,
forget
thank
to
you,
sign.
Miranda.
I just felt like this would be another whole
Yeah, well,
conversation.
I got afraid
Good.
that
One of those little tennis zappers.
All right, thanks, Nick. We are back and we are going to be working on providing budget guidance to staff. I would like to say that one of the things that I've been thinking about, you all probably know that we still have many people, the staff under contract for 4% raises. And the last couple budget seasons, the health insurance was a couple of years ago, 14%. Last year, I believe it was 11%. So, you know, I know there have been.
We do hear good things about this year's health insurance, but
Right,
yeah.
right. But I think we have to be realistic. And I'm just gonna throw out an idea that I was thinking, we should try to keep around 5%, no more than what we had last year, because it's otherwise gonna be pretty difficult to, I remember once a select board member asked Gail why we couldn't just level fund. And Gail said, if we level fund, I have to lay off people. So, I mean, that's something we need to consider. And I don't know, we didn't do an amount last year, and it kind of.
And that's why we would
it's
appreciate some numerical kind of target. And as I pointed out in, I think, my response to one of Eric's queries that, of course, go to everybody, a numerical guidance definitely might cut short the pain that we endured last year, getting an unrealistic budget of 18, 20% increase, getting that down to where we could expect the voters to support it at, I think the number was 5% or so last year, ultimately. One thing I did want to note is that at least in a couple of departments, there may be, and I don't know because I don't know what their presentations will be or their requests will be. There's maybe some departments that come in with additional staff as proposals. You've heard, I think, that that might be the case in the town manager's office, both with putting the HR director into her own separate line item or budget item, leaving some of her duties as formerly the executive assistant to the town manager for me to hire on. And I would like to come back to the board and at least pitch this notion of a facilities manager. I know that there's been discussions in the community about an appetite perhaps for more police officers to address some of the issues that we've got in town, or the perception of safety related issues. So aside from, yes, having some general numerical guidance, I hope that staff might be given the latitude to at least propose the additional staff that they might think is necessary. Because I remember what we're talking about in terms of guidance is not the final outcome. It's kind of a general approach that you'd like staff to take, knowing that you'll still have 2 months to modify any proposals from staff. And that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what we expect a select board to do, to take a proposed budget and kick the tires and really explore what is necessary and what's not. But you do have that ability to shave proposals that come forward. So that's just the prologue I'd like to add to what Mary has said, that parameters about values and about goals are great, but yes, a numerical number would be helpful to work with, so we are more realistic in our budgeting this year than last year.
In what you've handed out, John.
This is from Eric, by the way.
Okay, this is Eric. What's the yellow? So is that just new or what?
Yes, thank you. So this is just a starting place for a conversation. The yellow is new. The red with strike through is suggested. There are places where there felt like there was duplication, and so this is, the everything under strategic direction, values, and guiding principles is what I copied from either the fiscal year 24, 25, and then
I see. So that's the starting point, and then yours are edits to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, plan and save for emergencies, for example, felt like it was a little redundant with some things. I basically covered it with a bullet under logistical guidance, continued to fund reserve accounts. So yeah, I made some changes here. We can go through, we probably should go through line by line, or we can start with another draft. If someone else has a draft, I provided this to the board and to the town manager about 3 minutes before tonight's meeting. I was still working on it late this afternoon, so I apologize for its tardiness and that it didn't get included in the packet, or wasn't, it's not available to the public at this point. But what I changed a little bit too, sort of to focus people in on the first part, specific to fiscal year 2027, and then took some of the more guiding principle kind of items and put them toward the second part of the memo. Things that we continue to want to do, long-term planning, for example, maintaining a focus on being a competitive employer, for example. I think these are things that we want to continue to do and are worth reiterating, but don't need to be at the top line. So the basis for the number of 3.4%, which I suggested as a starting place for conversation tonight, that didn't get pulled out of a hat, that came from it's grounded in some research that I did, and I can go ahead and share that, or share where I grounded that if you would like, if that's, Madam Chair, if you're ready for that.
Sure.
Okay, so one of the questions I was asking was, what sort of the drivers, the cost drivers, and John provided some information on that. So we have generally speaking, we have an inflation driver, cost driver, but we have some specific ones. For example, contracts that have salary increases of 4% in them. And when I went through, so I asked John for an Excel version of the spreadsheet of the budget, and the reason is I wanted to add up and see what this meant. So if you go through and you pull all of the salaries for police, fire, and DPW, and I probably pulled more salaries than is covered under contracts, because I haven't seen the union contracts, but I assume some of the admin personnel are not covered. So this might be a little bit on the excessive side, but it's basically there's $6.588 million worth of salaries there, and a 4% increase on that is $264,000 roughly. So it gives you kind of a sense, so that when you apply 3.4% to last year's total expenditures, we're talking about $775,000. So a chunk of that is already committed. On the health insurance question, MVP small group plans sold through the Health Connect, or whatever it's called, which I understand the town does not use, but I think 2.98% is the projected increase there, or the proposed increase. So if you take 3% of all of our health insurance, including for retirees, we're looking at about addition of $80,000, I believe. And I think it would be, if someone runs these numbers and finds that I've erred, then I'm all ears. Other factors that I was looking at include the GFOA.org has some interesting information on inflationary indices in budgeting. And this is sort of geared toward governments, and what are the inflation indices that governments might consider. And there's some qualifications here as well, because it basically says, think about all these indices, but also, by the way, these are nationwide, and you might have regional differences. And so consider those things as well. But so for each of the indices that they suggested, might be an impact on government's budgeting. I went through and I pulled the numbers either from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or a similar government website like the Bureau of Economic Analysis. So one is the Employment Cost Index. This is the compensation cost for state and local government workers. I'm quoting from their website. Compensation costs for state and local government workers increased 4% for the 12-month period ending in June 2025, after increasing 4.9% in the same period a year earlier. Wages and salaries increased 3.9% from June 2024 to June 2025, and benefit costs increased 4.1%. From June 2023 to 24, wages and salaries are up 5.1%, and benefit costs rose 4.8%. So there's a lot of numbers there, but the trend is it's trending downward. Now, I don't know, there are no projections beyond that, but we're down to about 4% from, closer to 5%. The other number that I looked at was the cost of living adjustment. So that affects our taxpayers, or some of our taxpayers. And that's hasn't been released yet, but I think.
You're talking about Social Security?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it drives other things as well, but that's projected to be about 2.6, maybe 2.7%. So that's, the people that come up with that adjustment are looking at cost of living and so on. The other recommendation was to consider the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, and this is on the Bureau of Economic Analysis website. And this reflects the change in the price of goods and services purchased by consumers in the United States. June over June, so June 25 to June 24, it's 2.6% increase. The Producer Price Index, this is on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is an index for final demand, and it rose 0.9% in July. Prices final demand services advanced 1.1%, and the index for final demand goods increased 0.7%. On an unadjusted basis, the index for final demand moved up 3.3% for the 12 months ended in July. The other source of information that I was looking at was for the state of Vermont. They produce an economic review and revenue forecast update for the legislature each year. And in the executive summary section of that, it's relatively rosy, but there is an underscore of, quote, as tariff and other policies come into focus, these projections may need to be revisited. And part of that report is Moody's Analytics produces an macroeconomic risk matrix. And one of the things that's interesting in that is what they recognize as one of the highest risks are focused on low-income households. Low-income households being basically unable to pay their bills. And I don't know, I didn't get a chance to look historically where that shows up in their matrix. So their matrix is on the y-axis risk, and on the x-axis, the impact on the economy. And so the things that sort of are in that upper right corner are the things that the private sector and governments are really worried about. But and this particular issue is not. It's high on risk, but it's low on impacting the economy, according to Moody's Analytics. But raised a red flag for me because it's really high on the risk side of the access. They don't think obviously it's going to have rippling effects through the economy, but it's an interesting data point to think about. And so I completely understand, particularly in light of just having spent time talking about staffing and all sorts of other financing and funding needs for our infrastructure. Understand that the town needs to spend money. I appreciate the position of facilities manager and some of the other suggestions I've been hearing. We've got to be thinking about the voters as well. And we've got to be thinking about how do we keep people, where's that balance that allows us to keep people in their homes? And that's really important to me. When I was out canvassing back in February, plenty of people, affordability was at the top of their list. And so I can't lose focus on that. I don't think we should lose focus on that. I proposed 3.4% as a starting point, and I think it's going to be really challenging to get there. But one of the things that keeps bouncing around in my brain is that the absolute best engineering comes from projects like when we put things in outer space. When we put a man on the moon, like that's the pinnacle of engineering because of the constraints, because of the limitations, because of the challenges. And so we should look at this as, if we just throw money at the problem, it's easy to solve. It's just like it's easy to solve engineering problems when we're here on Earth or whatever. We try to solve something that's on the moon or an unmanned rover or something like that. It's much more challenging because of all the constraints. And so if we put some constraints on ourselves, it forces us to be creative. It forces us to really reevaluate. Obviously, we're not doing engineering, but I don't think it's bad to have some constraints. And I think that if we put constraints in place and then halfway through budget season, we're really seeing that there's 3.4% is completely unrealistic, or whatever number we come up with tonight, I think we can revise the budget memo. We don't want staff to have to cycle through staff cycled through in one direction last year. We don't want them to have to cycle through in the other direction this year. But I would suggest that 3.4% or somewhere in that ballpark is closer to where we should be ending up if we're going to allow people to continue to live in this town in an affordable fashion.
Can I respond briefly? First of all, I don't know who saw it, but Mike Hoyt, who's not here, did offer his guidance, which was that, yes, a number is good. He said not something small like 3%.
Right.
That's just one person who doesn't happen to be here tonight, but I'm sure you're aware of it. My thought on that, Eric, is first of all, that very well researched. I appreciate all that work. I would say that it would be easier for the staff through the budget process to make additional incremental cuts than to be expected at the outset to get to a painfully low threshold that they might not be able to as effectively argue for an increase in spending. And by that, I mean, by asking for a pretty disciplined number at the outset, it doesn't allow, in my mind, for the good, healthy give and take between the select board and staff that has traditionally taken place during budget season, where there's always the probing question of select board members sitting forward, wondering how the department head can do better by shaving a bit more off of their budget. So I'm just suggesting that by getting to the end point early in the process, it might short circuit the opportunity for discussions between the board and the department heads and Gail and me later in the process. And that, in my mind, a preferable course would be to, yes, have some discipline, have a number, but to allow for the next 2 months to be meaningful discussions about how we can make further adjustments to keeping the voters in mind and their ability, the taxpayers' ability to pay. So rather than start staff off with an endpoint type of number, might be preferable to have something like a 4 or 5% that the board can then spend the next 2 months trying to bring down to that 3 or 3.5%, which you identified as maybe the appropriate number given all of the statistical research you've done. I'm just advocating for a more of a give and take between the select board and staff for the months of November and December than an initially quite low number might allow for. I'm not sure if I'm explaining my thought well or not.
Brandon?
I guess I'm just wondering too, is it not more frustrating for, again, never been through this process, but is it not more frustrating for staff to like come with a budget and then be asked, actually shave it down more, actually shave it down more, rather than maybe coming up with a budget and maybe really say, hey, is there something else you maybe wanna, maybe got a little over.
Certainly last year was frustrating because there were no guardrails and and the department heads did come in, and I have to give them credit. I'm sure they felt that this was all going to be a good way to spend resources to improve services to town, but they did come in with a collectively unrealistic increase of 20% or so. So I don't think any of the numbers that we could conceive of tonight would go anywhere near 20%, right? So I think we're talking about increments, 3%, 4%, 5%, that might still allow for some exchange, but I don't think there'd be anywhere near the frustration because we're already in the neighborhood. And then the process involves how to get to the best outcome the select board collectively sees as something you can present to the taxpayers at town meeting day. And my thought is just, if you have a number that's that low, it might not allow for much give and take between the board and the department heads. And by the way, I do think that no matter what number guidance is given by the board, that I would hope that there'd be some latitude given for department heads who feel the need for staffing increases to present those in addition to whatever that number is, knowing that that would then generate a healthy discussion between the board and the staff about, okay, you've said you want 2 more police department members. Tell us why, right? That would be a healthy discussion, just as it would be to say to the town manager, I understand you want an executive assistant to replace the work that Paula had done in the past at HR. Tell me why. Or John, you've advocated for a facilities manager. Tell me why that's a good idea. I think if there's no ability within this number or within the ground rules that you adopt for the possibility even of staffing increases, that kind of shuts the discussion down before it even starts.
Go ahead, Brent. Maybe if it was the 3 point, because right, what it sounds like to me, Eric, you do a lot of research on this, so please correct me if my line of thinking is flawed. We're basing this number off of union contracts, healthcare increases, and then just like statistics based on like what with price, like inflation. Could we say that's the base level, right? Like, let's try to keep base level expenditures around 4% maybe. And then maybe if there's like capital projects or staffing, that could be an additional like side piece that we
at least the staff would be allowed under this guidance to present those proposals, and then there would be a healthy discussion about whether they merit inclusion in the budget. By the way, one thing I do want to note, I was kind of eavesdropping, kind of not, because Paula was complaining about it afterwards, in a phone call she was having with our VLCT contact, specifically with regard to a retiree health insurance. And apparently that's a completely different kettle of fish than our MVP plan, which again has been previewed to be about a 3% increase, but stay tuned for finality on that. But she said she had been initially given the impression that retiree health insurance was going up 7%, but heard today that it's actually 20%. So that might present something of a wrinkle for that part of your analysis. But please don't go to the bank on that. That's kind of a conversation I heard a piece of, and I heard Paula complaining about it, but that needs to be chased down. I'm not sure about that figure.
May I respond to some of those points?
Sure.
Okay. So let me go in reverse order here because I just brought up, so retiree health insurance is basically $437,000. So at least if it is a percentage well above 3%, it's a percentage of a smaller number than the 1.7 million or so that we spend on active employees. But yes, I was assuming it was across the board, so that would definitely throw a wrinkle into things. As far as the questions that you had, Miranda, so we're talking about the operating budget. So anything that's capital is outside of this. So that's one point, right? So that's if we want to bond things or whatever, those will be separate discussions. So these are just operating expenses. And the other point that I'll make is that I think all of this gets easier. And here we go, broken record again. But all this gets easier, I think, if we start doing multi-year financial planning, because then the things that you want are presented earlier in the season, and we get to understand more about the trajectory we're on over a 3-year planning horizon, and we get to see. So, over 3 years, let's say we want to add 7 new staff members in various departments, and we can say, okay, well, these two have to go together because logically, you can't have a patrol shift of 1 or whatever the case is. But we can start to plan out and smooth the curve. Part of, I think, what we need to do is smoothing the curve for taxpayers. They need to have an expectation that unless something major happens, they have a sense of what their tax rate increase is going to be. I think that's really important. So the years, last year was 5 and change, roughly 5.5, but maybe a little lower when we removed the $325,000 for recycling. Maybe that came out lower. I didn't do the math on that. But the year before was 7 and change. Yeah. And at the same time, the school district was, education tax rates were really high, like 14% or something like that, average statewide. I can't remember what ours was, but some sense, and we don't have any control over the education side. We can react to it. We should be informed by it. But at least on the municipal side, it seems like we ought to be able to plan a little bit better. And so I certainly appreciate that we don't want to shut the conversation down, and that we want to understand where we need staff or where we need to spend operating expenses. But if we can start to do that over a longer horizon, and if we can set some expectations for taxpayers and staff at the same time, and the town government, that, hey, we're going to try to smooth the curve a little bit. That to me feels better. It feels like a better way of operating.
Ashley?
Yeah, I wonder if we could make the guidance. I guess I really like, Eric, what you've done with the kind of high-end, produce a budget with a total fund expenditures for operating expenses of no more than 3.4% above fiscal year 26, and then prepare a list of options that, should economic conditions deteriorate in quarters 3 and 4, could be applied with an expenditure of no more than 2.2%. I'm reading it in full in case anyone is still listening at home. I like that structure of like, what can we feasibly do? What could work for your department within this? And then if there's an emergency scenario, what could you reduce that down to? I am also, though, taking in the feedback from John and like thinking about the numbers myself. Wonder if we change that language to the first line to be producing a budget of no more than 4% as the high end cap. Then maybe a bullet under that, which says include budget expenditures over the next 3 years in regards to staffing or equipment that you would like to see funded, and like give us that 3-year outlook. Like have the departments think about that themselves, and they can say like, yeah, no, we need these staff next year, or they can say, oh yeah, if we're doing a 3-year outlook, we could, take it in pieces, or we could wait until year 3. So ask them to provide that like 3-year picture for staffing and equipment. And then for the low end, kind of like in case of emergency conditions, maybe bring that up to 2.5%. Yeah, those are just some of my initial thoughts.
I will point out that while Eric has suggested this 3-year financial plan, I have not had an opportunity to discuss it with the finance director. She might have some valuable input about why that's either feasible or not a good idea, or might be time consuming to the extent that it might delay our action on the pending budget, on this 27 budget that we're about to start thinking about. So I'd be happy to do that. I have not done that yet.
And are you, is there a, I guess like definitions wise between full blown, like implementing a 3-year budgeting plan versus like asking departments who want to add staff, major staff or major equipment that we don't already have, to think of that in a 3-year plan? I mean, would that be something?
Well, I think Eric has drawn that definition, that distinction between a 3-year budget and a 3-year plan. Certainly part of the guidance could be to encourage all department heads to be thinking 3 years out as to what their significant expenditures beyond operating funds might be. And that could include capital needs, but it could also include anticipated staffing needs.
Yeah, because I don't think we need to that we would expect them to just start like thinking of their entire operating budget in a 3-year, but like just for like staff and
I can tell you now that a lot of the department heads are close to being done with their budgets. Of course, they're waiting for this guidance, of course, but a lot of that work has already been done for this coming cycle. Just FYI.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've put, a lot of time and thought into it ahead of this moment. But I have to agree with Eric that the number one piece of feedback that I got from voters when I canvassed during my campaign for election was the affordability concern. I spoke to a lot of elderly people in our community who are, feel they're being priced out, that their Social Security increase doesn't match the tax increase and other, let alone other bills and whatnot. So for me, that is also a priority. And with a positive twist on that, because I love our staff and I like the work that our departments are doing, every single department is really valuable and really important to the overall like growth and trajectory of our town. I also think that there are ways, I want to emphasize the logistical guidance area, where it says pursue grants and other means is highlighted and added. And this was something that Eric and I spoke about, and I'm pretty passionate about, is like what kind of social capital do we have in this town that we could pull upon to get projects done? I think that most taxpayers have more time, skill, and maybe even like material resource to contribute to town initiatives than they might like actual dollars right now. And so are there initiatives within different departments, maybe not public works, but like Parks and Rec, or maybe even planning, where we can have volunteer efforts and fundraising drives and like some events that also bring the community together and really kind of breathe some life into our municipal government, which also then fund some of these like ambitions that our department heads come up with, which are of huge value. So yeah, that's just the thought that I have, is as we're giving them this guidance, also thinking about how can we as a board and as like the town leadership support staff in ways that might not just be this tax rate increase.
Can I make a couple of points?
Yes.
First, again, what we're talking about is the beginning of the budget cycle. So again, I do advocate for a little bit of wiggle in the joints to allow for that discussion. But one piece of good news we haven't mentioned tonight, which is that we have a sales tax that's been implemented. And by the time of town meeting or setting tax rates next July, we should have a substantial number of non-property tax dollars with which to use to help take some of the curse off of the affordability issue. I know you can make the point that it's the same people largely that are paying the property taxes that will also be paying the retail sales tax. However, it is going to be money that is collected and dedicated purely to property tax relief. So consider that as you think about the impact on taxpayers of a budget.
That being said, is there an interest in revising the first 2 paragraphs of this document? Well, I guess first we should ask if there is, I would like to use this document as the jumping point that we might amend. But that this is kind of the framework for this evening. So then do we want to amend those first 2 lines? Should we start getting into that? Just go through it? Yeah. Shall I make a motion?
I have one question for you, so that's okay. Wait, so Eric, when you calculated or estimated the 3.4%, were you taking into consideration the 2 staffing positions that we know are on the horizon or going to be requested, the facilities manager and the assistant town manager?
Or executive assistant to the town manager. Yeah.
The simple answer is no. I was not trying to produce a budget. I was using some inflation indices and some known cost drivers to get a sense of where I think we should be in an area that I think is reasonable for taxpayers as well. And part of the no is because I think that there's so let me draw your attention to something I did not so everything under detailed FY27 guidance is new. It didn't belong in any earlier memo. And I included a bullet here, prioritize low-cost capital unintensive recreation opportunities, because I think we spend a fair amount in this town on recreation, and I think it's great. I love our department, Parks and Recs department is awesome, and I love the programs that we have. But we've got to strike a balance. And so part of the reason I didn't go through that is because I think if we need to make up, if the $775,000 that 3.4% increase represents doesn't cover the healthcare, the salary increases, extra positions, then we need to be reevaluating where that might come from. We continue to just add to the budget, add to the budget, add to the budget. And that to me is, well, I think that's the definition of unsustainability. And so no, I didn't go through and try to calculate at a detailed level, what those positions, where that money would come from, because I think there's got to be some stuff squeezed out. And that's the difficult conversation. And I might get a lot of unpleasant emails for saying it, but I think we've got to evaluate where our priorities are, and one of my priorities is making sure that people that I know that have lived here for generations can continue to do so. That's important to me.
I'd like to say a few things. I agreed with Mike that no more than 5%. I think that I don't think there's a problem with starting with a base, like what Ashley said at 4%. I mean, it's not, it shouldn't be written in stone. I think until, I mean, 3 of you out of the 5 of us have never gone through the budget season, and wait until you see and hear what these people do, because I have nothing but the utmost admiration for the staff and how they do try very hard to keep things in focus, understanding the needs of the community. And, you know, I'm just gonna say, because I was on liaison for Parks and Rec, this is one of the proudest commissions in this town. I mean, people and the kids and the older people who like to watch the kids and see them as grandparents are, you know, really proud of our recreation department, and we keep it very low. So you know, I'm gonna advocate, I mean, whatever the whole board decides is fine, but I don't think we can write it in stone and say, okay, we're gonna keep it at 3.4% and not see what the departments are bringing in. And I really feel very strongly that you're gonna find it's more difficult than you know. And we also have to remember that our staff provides valuable services to the people in this community, including the elderly people. And, you know, as John and I are going on the Bugbee feasibility study, I mean, one person asked me today, said, how do you decide how much you're gonna spend or what you're gonna spend on Bugbee? And I said, well, that's what we're gonna be doing in our committee in the time that we're there. It's really hard to just set in stone one thing and say, we're not gonna go above this. I agree that we have to put parameters and kind of say, this is what we're looking at, and we're gonna try and keep it low. But I think, you know, you some of the things that we talk about, safety issues, we $450,000 for a refurbished fire truck. We need fire trucks. That's what it costs, you know, and I think sometimes it's really hard to kind of wrap our minds around the things that the staff does. And, you know, having been through this will be my 4th year. I think they really work hard. They know that they have to keep a tight lid on things. But again, what's the trade-off? You have to decide what's the trade-off. You know, less service, or, you know, I'm not saying we go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11% or anything like that, but I think we have to be realistic and say within a certain margin, it would be nice if we could keep a base. But I think it's going to be really, really, really hard to go below 4%. I really do. And I think, you know, you got to give yourself some wiggle room, and it's not, doesn't mean we don't care about a lot of the people. And, you know, I'm on Social Security. I'm one of those ones that have 2.6 and 2.7, you know, it's hard. It's hard. Nobody says it isn't hard, but I think that, you know, we have a duty to all the people in the town too. And if we want to grow our town, which is a lot of times the talk, we got to bring in families too. And what do families need? So those are just some things to consider, you know, about, you know, trying to establish a parameter by which we're going to operate.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Sorry, did you have
No.
something to add?
I was just going to say very briefly, if you don't mind, let's remember this is only guidance for the beginning of a 2-month budget cycle. So I think any number that we pick is going to be helpful for staff so we don't waste the month or so we wasted last year.
Right.
So with no parameters, that could be a waste of time. A number tonight would be very helpful. I'm closer, I think, to Ashley and Mary's position on what that first number should be. But again, if you adopt that kind of a number, I would say you'll have plenty of more opportunities to scrutinize these department budgets over those next 2 months thereafter.
I guess I have a comment and then a question. I think my comment is like, I definitely hear what you're saying, Mary, and I think we all agree that our town staff do a phenomenal job with very small budgets. And I think it's a really hard balancing act between, right, the services that we want in our town and also paying the taxes to get those services. I feel like that's always something that's like, it's just a hard balance. I wish I could give them all the money, like, right? Money is made up and everyone can have whatever budget they want because I want our town to be great. But then there's a reality of then who lives here because no one can afford the taxes. But I guess my question is more so like, with this guidance, are town staff going to be like 3.4%? That is the number, and they know they're going to use it as like a maximum threshold, or will they say, okay, the number is 3.4%, and I'm coming to you with 7.
And that's, I think, important for the wordsmithing. Is this a hard number, or is this an aspiration that we would encourage people to follow, knowing that each department might have different challenges to reach that kind of a number? I would say, again, at this early stage, it'd be helpful to have some degree of flexibility. The sentence "provide a budget with this amount" doesn't allow for much flexibility or latitude.
I kind of
I do.
Although the word guidance does. So you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think my thoughts right now are that like the clearer the guidance, the easier it is for staff. And by clear guidance, I think having a really concrete cap and saying that is our request, I think where the flexibility can come into play. And I hear your thoughts, and I know, Mary, you have the experience of having done this several times. And I feel like, Miranda, you alluded to this in an earlier question, but like, so this is the cap, produce a budget that meets that guideline, and then have another slide that's like, if possible, a wish, not a wish list, but like a top priority that we had to eliminate to meet this strict, limited increase. That's how I would find it most useful, to sort of be able to not, because I don't think it's like, yes, we have 2 months, but it's also like, we don't have to, it's almost like it's like, we don't need to like have the struggle to fill up the 2 months if it doesn't need to, I think a more efficient process is just a less frustrating process on both sides of it. And you spoke about give and take, John, and my only concern with that is like, if we have a higher number, then it's going to be all take. And then how is that more frustrating than not for staff?
That's traditionally the select board's role, is to look at a proposed budget and cut to a point where the taxpayers can live with it.
Yeah,
that's my understanding over my 17 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't see the inherent value in that, just because that's the traditional way. I think, having a clear, more strict, restrictive process, like Eric said, can just lead to creativity and is doing justice to what we've heard from voters, is that that's their most important priority. And that what they want from us, from elected officials, is to have a really, minimal increase in the budget. And yes, those restrictions might lead to very difficult, challenging thought processes around what can we trim if we do want a new staff role or what have you. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now.
Ashley, did you have a question?
I was just gonna agree with Ida and say that I would think the departments know better what to prioritize with trimming down their budgets than we would. And I know that last year, from what I was able to observe of the budget process, there were kind of some across the board reductions that we asked for where it was like, if we're cutting this percentage from one department, it has to come out of all departments. I really not in favor of that kind of guidance, because like, as we just saw from our presentation from DPW tonight, like there are just departments in this town that have a more critical, like, if we don't fix this road, people will not get to their jobs. People cannot get emergency services. Like, it is a dire situation that we need to fix these roads. It's damaging properties when the drainage isn't done properly. So anyways, like, I just think that we, in these really tough times, need to prioritize, like, as a town, what do we need to invest in order to like make the town safe, make the town operable, and how can we get creative to make that happen. So I guess my thoughts are that with tweaking these numbers, like John said, Mary said maybe more in that 4% range. I don't know, Eric and others, how you feel about that. I'm comfortable with that. I do think 3.4 is super ambitious. I like that ambition, but I think maybe it is the lower area to start. And I think that idea too of like, we're going to have that back and forth. But I do think that, yeah, maybe having that 4%, I think the number should be 4% if it were, just my opinion. Then with that additional, also include like, what's your wish list above that? If in regards, not in like the world is your oyster, but like if you need additional staffing, if you need major equipment that goes beyond that 4% increase, what are they? Explain to us why. And like, and in a 3-year vision, does it have to be 2027? Could it be 28? Could it be partially 28, 29? So we can add a line for that. And then changing 3% for the low end budget. I guess, John, do you have any qualms about the idea of having them present this kind of like in case of?
No, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I don't want them to get too much diverted from their budget proposal in terms of time, but I think I'm sure that if you gave them a limit and they felt that they're chafing under the limit, they'd want an opportunity to tell you, if we had a little bit more money, we could accomplish this priority. So I think that'd be fine.
And I mean, if
that's a good thought exercise.
And like, reel me in if I'm going too far off, but like, do we want to make the maximum increase 4.5? And that is kind of giving them more of that leeway. Then it's like, because I feel like telling them between 3% and 4%, I guess I haven't, actually, like, that seems like a pretty narrow margin of change, but maybe it's not when you get into it. What are your thoughts on that, Eric? I'm curious.
I can tell you that 3.4% represents $752,000, $752,000. And if
is the difference between 3% and 4%?
No, that's
the difference. That's 3.4% represents $752,000, $753,000 really above last year's expenditures. And if we change that to 4%, it goes up to 885.
So across all departments, it's $100,000 across everything, roughly. Is that 1%?
885
0.6%.
to
oh yes, thank you, Ida.
it's like
0.6%.
130. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just wondering if that's a big enough range between those. How much of a difference do you want to see between the two scenarios they provide us?
Don't know that I have an immediate answer for that, but I like the trajectory that we're on. I think it sounds like that I'm hearing similar things from you and Ida, and basically about having that 3-year outlook or your wish list or your add-on list, and maybe bumping up the 3.4% on. I can see, one of the things that I found almost last in my research was the employment cost index. And, that is higher. That is, 4.4 4.1, 4%, something like that. And it's trending down, but we don't know that it's going to continue to trend down. And we also don't know that other things are going to continue to trend down. So yeah, I have, I didn't come into this. It's worded, the language isn't perfect because it was worded at the last minute. And so, yeah, it sounds very inflexible, but I don't mean to be inflexible. I think, I can certainly be happy to hear a 4% or something like that. And
Maybe
some of these other
maybe the
additions.
board would empower Eric or somebody to work with me on final language.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I'm sorry, Maria, but I was wondering if I don't know what your deadline is on this, but
I'm told I should not leave the room without your guidance tonight. But I think that if we had a day or two to work out language issues to soften up or massage it a little bit, depending on what the numbers turn out to be, sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like you have time until next week.
Yeah,
when we
I
have a
was
special.
doing that thinking, but as we say, the budgets are due August 29th.
Oh,
And a lot of them are ongoing.
right, okay.
I think that we could finagle this language really quick, because I think maybe if we said aim to produce a budget, 4.5% for the first number. Sorry, 4%, we're going with 4, sorry, I'm so sorry. 4% for the first number, 2.5 or 3% for the second number, somewhere in there. And then include staffing and equipment for 3-year outlook. And then I have a question for you, Eric. If we're starting to think about our budgets on more of like this 3-year cycle, do you have any other guidance on how we get there, other than thinking about staffing and major equipment for the next 3 years?
I guess my reaction would be to leave it at that. It's sort of Ashley's original idea of, sort of give us an outlook until we hear from the finance director about more on this topic. And then we have a more sort of thorough investigation of pros and cons and a more.
And that's more part of their budget presentations that they can give at the conclusion maybe of each of these presentations that you've seen, Ida, and you've seen Mary, that could be explored.
Right.
We've asked you to think 3 years out for significant cost pressures, whether it's staffing or capital needs. Please identify those for us now so we can know them. Yeah.
But if that sounds like that's a good idea, can we also talk about other things that are in the yellow?
Yeah.
I just had a question about what you might have meant, Eric, about fund the charge work of committees and commissions. Don't we do that with stipends?
We do. This is a carryover from an earlier memo, and I don't know why I highlighted that in yellow, other than that I removed the phrase "within reason," because I think everything that we're going to put in the budget hopefully is within reason.
Oh, I see.
So it seemed like
So
strike.
it's
still in there.
one
Yeah,
of our, okay.
If you look at the 20,
Yeah.
one of the other memos, it's in the it's
Right.
at the very end, maybe. think.
Yeah,
It's
I
in-
saw
yeah.
that on the
So-
backside, but I thought, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't something new, that it was what we had.
Yeah,
had
I don't know
originally
why I
intended.
ended up highlighting it,
Okay.
but I think there's, I was struggling with what do we include and what is obvious and doesn't need to be included, right? And so if we see other things that fall to one side or the other of that line.
Right.
I think just to build off of that, the conversation I had with Eric before, was remembering some, I don't know, like neuroscience research or whatever about kind of how many guidelines someone can keep in their mind
Yeah.
while they're comparing it to another task. And this is, I don't know exact research, but this is probably too many. So I think that is a good point, that some of these are like, yeah, that sounds good, but like, is it really necessary to have in a document where we want it to be very easy for staff to kind of absorb while they're doing the other task of making their budget? I think that the fund the charge work of committee commissions probably could come off, honestly, because it's a little bit, it just,
We are doing it now
Yeah,
with the
right.
stipend, arguably.
Right. I don't think it needs to be like underscored. So I would maybe just remove that one.
And I had a question about the user fees.
Yeah.
There was an email from someone who, and I didn't respond because I wasn't sure how to respond. Has to have user fees ever, because this person thought that people with lower income ought to have lower user fees. We've never done that, have we?
Not to my knowledge,
Okay,
and I'm sure could create a host of
right,
administrative burdens.
right. Okay, I just wanted to make
The
sure.
idea has been so that some of these programs can sustain themselves,
Right.
but it doesn't
exactly.
mean we can't also use them to incentivize good behavior as well.
Right, which is fine, which is fine. I just wanted to make sure before I responded. Okay.
By the way, your language on that, Eric, revise user fees to incentivize, maybe to, among other things, incentivize, because we are trying to cover our nut, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
What's the suggestion?
To include the phrase, so among other things, so that reads revise user fees and rates to, among other things, incentivize preferred behaviors. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And nobody takes issue with any of the red things crossed out? I don't. I just ask because if it's helpful, John, Eric, or Mary, tell me if I don't need to do this. I'm just editing this document right now and I'm deleting the red things that we're all okay with and unhighlighting the yellow things that we're okay with so that we can send John, I can email John just a clean copy with the
Wow.
final language.
Then I would get out of Gail's doghouse right away.
Yeah. So yeah, one other, if I may, on the logistical guidance where we have that line about pursuing grants and other means, I do wonder if it's okay to add the sentence, for example, is there a fundraising or volunteer campaign that the board or a committee could support, which would meet budgetary needs as well as building community?
Yeah.
Just to kind of help them
I really
understand.
appreciate you bringing that into the conversation, Ashley. And yeah, I think that'd be great to put it in the document as well. I don't know exactly what it will look like, but I hope that's one area where people can be creative and like think outside the box. So yeah.
Okay, well, if no one has any other like yellow highlighted items, Mary, did you have anything
No,
else?
no, because I think we, the guidance regarding the staff, I think that this has been part of what we've already done too. Sure, Hartford is a competitive employer, including personnel, education, development, investment, retaining, recognizing, and rewarding the staff. I thought that was also one that we had already submitted as budget guidance in previous years.
So some of those on the backside, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Some of those on the backside, the detailed guidance, I did strike through on all of those, but some of them just got moved up into other categories and some of them got deleted completely.
Right.
So for example, things that we've done, there was one in here, fund town external communications with residents, community. We're funding that currently, so that got redlined. Fund town branding and marketing plan.
That's a kind of adjacent to the communications person, I would say.
Yeah, it's a good one that we shouldn't sort of skim over that one. My thinking on that is now that we have a communication specialist, to hope that we can in-house some of that rather than.
I think he's already highlighted that for us, maybe in the SIGAX or in some way or another, he's highlighted his desire to do some branding work. Yeah.
Great, good. And if we need a small consulting contractor or whatever. But originally, I think before his position was created,
Right.
it was probably in planning and development who didn't have the capacity.
Right.
And it was probably the thinking was it would be outsourced to a consultant to do. And I think it just makes so much more sense to have it done in-house by someone who knows their town and our values and our history and our story and all that good stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah, and so back to your question, Mary, some of these things did get moved up
Okay.
and not just completely left or crossed out. The one about the solid waste transfer facility, I actually don't know what that meant. Prioritize funding of ongoing work at the solid waste transfer facility. Does anyone know what the phrase ongoing work refers to?
I wonder if it had to do with the Sanborn Head feasibility study
That's what I think.
that has been developed and tweaked several times and will hopefully get a final presentation in September.
Okay.
Let's hope that otherwise it could mean just monitoring of wells for bad substances that might be leaching out of there. I don't know. Oh, it could be the C&D pile. We have been funding that each year, and maybe that's been a goal to get enough money to deal with that C&D pile. So that you're right, it could be any number of things.
Well, if it feels appropriate to re-include it, by all means, let's do that. These are my
Yeah.
sort of fast
I think
judgments on
guidance
either.
to do that which they're already doing is not very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where did we land on the top, the detailed FY27 guidance? Can, Ashley, if you're the document maintainer now, would you mind reading through that? Would that be helpful?
Yes, but
others?
before I do, could you read me one more time what the total fund expenditure dollar number was for 4%? So I want to update that number.
Yeah, or you can just take that number out.
Yeah, I don't think they need that
Okay.
number as long as
Yeah.
they say that they're shooting for 4%.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I will read that. So it says, produce a budget
I
with.
thought you said aim to reduce.
Oh, I did not add that yet. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Endeavor to.
Aim to produce a budget with total fund expenditures for operating expenses of no more than 4% above fiscal year 26 total fund expenditures for operating expenses. Below that, include additional staff positions and or major equipment needs over the next 3 years, fiscal year 27 through 29. Then prepare a list of options that, should economic conditions deteriorate in Q3 or Q4, could be applied to produce a budget with total fund expenditures for operating expenses of no more than 2.5 or 3% above fiscal year 26. I don't know if we want to pick one of those two numbers. Which number shall we pick?
I would say 2.5 that would be I would weigh in with 2.5 just because there's a little bit more distance between that and the 4. And I do think picking one and not providing the either or is makes sense.
And I want to make sure that it's clear when you say conditions deteriorate in Q3, Q4. Is that 2027
2025.
or 2025 now? Okay.
Yeah.
That needs to be clear, because
Okay.
otherwise,
Well, yeah, we're going to be,
yeah,
I guess if we're talking about the fiscal year,
yeah,
Q1 is July through September.
right.
Q2 is October through December. Those are the only 2 months we'll have any impact on
Right.
for our budgeting purposes, because we have to have a budget in July and January.
Right.
So maybe FY 27 Q1 and Q2.
Or can we just
No.
eliminate that phrase about around should economic conditions
Yes.
deteriorate?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Prepare a list of
That's very
options
good.
that
Yes,
could be
yes.
applied.
Well,
Yes.
could it just say, should economic conditions deteriorate, taking out the Q3?
That's what we just
Oh,
said,
okay.
yeah.
I thought you were saying like take out that whole
No.
line. Okay.
The rationale there was, so I would, in the Qs, which I agree, striking it as simplify things, but just to make sure that I'm explaining myself, I meant calendar year in 2025, because basically if stuff happens.
Right.
In end of November, I think we want to be in a position to be able to pivot
Yeah.
relatively fluidly to a budget that's more affordable.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
what are you imagining? Just like if we hear that the school needs a gazillion dollars or something?
No, more on the sort of national economic level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so like if everybody is gonna get really hit hard.
There's a fair amount of uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if a lot of federal funding that goes to state funded programs that fund things that, yeah, like,
State of Vermont, 35% of their funding comes from federal.
is that kind of?
Yeah, and there's, we could go through a list of variables, but it seems, and maybe it applies every year, but it seems more pertinent and relevant this year than some in, a decade ago or so.
Can I ask you to read the second sentence, but that's the one now between 4% and the 2.5%?
Read that line
Yeah.
again?
No,
Yeah.
read the paragraph you've inserted between the 4% paragraph and the 2.5% paragraph.
Okay, it's really just one line. And
Okay.
it says include additional staff positions and or major equipment needs over a 3-year span.
Okay, so when you say include, it's hard to put in a budget document an alternative in that same budget document, but maybe include a narrative describing.
Is that what you guys are thinking too, that it would be?
Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable, right? We wouldn't want them to try to
Yep.
manage it in the budget itself.
Yep.
Additional staff positions and all major equipment needs over a 3-year span, FY 27 through 29.
Mhm.
Great, and yeah, then we have so with total fund expenditures for operating expenses of no more than 2.5% above fiscal year 26 total fund expenditures for operating expenses. Yeah, and then it goes into the rest of the language that we all seem
I think that's fantabulous.
Yeah, great,
awesome.
good
Good
job.
about that. Do we have to have a motion or are we just good to?
I think the
email you
board
guys?
should adopt the guidance.
Okay,
So with a motion from whoever and a second and a vote.
I'll take a motion. Miranda,
I move that the board adopt the fiscal year 2027 budget guidance as so amended by Ashley.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Any other questions before we vote? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes.
Unanimous guidance. Great.
Okay,
Good Good job, team.
now we
Mhm.
have select board community engagement plan.
Yes, we have been talking about this since our workshop where we agreed to limit public involvement in the select board hearings by limiting time spoken and repetition, et cetera. And as a response to that narrowing of public opportunities, I think the board felt strongly we ought to make other opportunities available. And by that, I think they meant, the board means community outreach, community events, to provide the public more of an opportunity to engage with its select board. So we have talked briefly about an invitation from the Quechee Club to have a community forum on their property, open to all and covered by Jam Media. And I think there's been an appetite expressed from Ida and Eric, at least, for an event perhaps in September in the Hartford area, Hartford Village or White River.
I have a suggestion there, inspired by Michelle Pileski's email about the pool. Wondering if maybe we have like a little outdoor select board outdoor gathering at the pool, but I do not know when the pool closes for the season.
I think any day, I'm sorry to say.
Because all the staff.
And
are in
with,
school.
with some of the cooler temperatures, that's a good thing, especially if we were going to do an evening one. But no, I appreciate that. Maybe that's something to shoot for next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
earlier in the season.
What about, well, I guess we need to be like, because I like the idea of a public outdoor space. And I know that the Resilient Hartford Committee has been doing a lot out at Clifford Park, but that's kind of far out. I don't know if we want it to be more like White River, Wilder area. Is that what we're thinking?
We're gonna park right there.
Yeah, we could do it right here.
I think for the first one, I mean, I think it is nice to think of West Hartford because I feel like they're one of the villages that feel neglected, because they're the most rural village.
Right.
So, but maybe not for our very first one as the select board, but for a future one.
We did Wilder last year with a listening session, like
Yeah.
maybe doing Queechee. So one of the
Yeah,
other
White River.
villages.
Yeah.
The
So-
school,
so is
I've
that what
asked the
we're talking about
school
right now,
about the
location?
school library, and she gave me a detailed message saying basically they can't commit to it because it might be involved in their issue
Yeah,
of environmental hazards.
yeah. And we're thinking not in the town hall, like, or
Yeah, I mean, we could do it here.
I suppose, but
it's not community enough.
it's not, it doesn't sound like you're
Right.
going out of your comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the event, like potluck thing that we had for candidates at the Coolidge was an option.
Yeah.
If David Briggs would. Approve of that. I
That
would
that could be viewed as manipulative,
yeah.
given that they've
Yeah.
got some things going on there.
That's
I
true.
mean, it could be viewed as manipulative, but it also could be viewed as engaging on that topic. Like whether the town participates or not is going to be a huge.
Well, as you know, I'm sorry to see Mary wincing a bit there, so I'll try to keep it quick. I know that we're engaged, or the board is engaged in this PPP process,
Mhm.
and perhaps having a forum at Coolidge or devoted to a discussion of Coolidge might be leapfrogging ahead of the methodical process that planning and development has set forth to evaluate that project.
What about I'm forgetting the name of this park. It is on the other side of White River, on the other end.
Watson? No.
The dog park?
No.
No.
It's on the other side of White
Oh,
River.
on Latham Works?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Radcliffe.
Radcliffe.
Yeah, that is a cute little area. I don't know. I feel like Eric has a pressing thought.
Eric?
So we're committed to an outdoor venue
Yeah.
because
Oh.
weather is a factor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
It's a great date.
so
And like
well, right, but then
chairs.
that just
and
complicates
Netflix
things,
and-
right? So I think the idea is nice. I just don't know about the practicality of it.
That's a good point. Also, if it's a potluck, it's can be a little trickier when you don't have access to like water and electricity.
Right.
I mean, it's totally possible, but yeah, it does present a few more.
And, in the last, the Queechee one and the Wilder one, there was a time limit, I think. I mean, again, it's really nice to have a potluck, but then you're asking people to come for a much longer period of time. Usually, you don't usually eat and talk at the same time. I just think that complicates things. I think it's better to keep things simple. Because the Queechee one is an hour and a half.
I mean, I think it was 2 hours if people brought dishes. I mean, it's not like it has to be like a full dinner, but
Yeah,
just
it's not
like
a
something to
banquet.
share. Like, I think bringing something to share also like breeds conversation and like this like sense of reciprocity and like other aspects of coming together and building community.
Breaking bread, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I'm in favor of just doing it here because I don't think it's a question of like whether we're out of our comfort zones. It's a matter of like, we want to engage with the community. It's bringing up this huge issue that we don't have any public space in downtown White River to do events. Even the town government can't think of a place to have an event with the community. So like, bigger conversation for down the road. But yeah, if we did it here, I feel like it's just accessible. It's on the bus route. There is a playground for people who have kids. There is an indoor space in case it does have bad weather. There is a kitchen area upstairs. Like,
There's lots of parking.
yeah, I think if we really marketed it and really tried to engage, like, I think the part for me that's going out of my comfort zone is dedicating the time to reach out to folks and maybe even do some door-to-door canvassing. Maybe if we all spent an hour, knocking doors and letting people know in this area, like that could make,
And do you have in mind a daytime event? And is this a weekday or is this a weekend and then what's the topic of the discussion?
I don't have anything, but I, it's nice to have something or even a facilitator to come up with some ideas for, like an agenda. I know that Gucci has an agenda. How did we do it? I'm trying to remember how we did it at the Wilder one.
We had a facilitator from PRISM, Prism, and we were talking about a listening session. And I think we were talking about communication being the topic.
Right, so there needs like a theme or a topic and someone who could facilitate. And we do have the funds for it in.
Oh, yes,
our
for sure,
education.
for sure.
So, and professional development. Who had a hand?
Eric?
Eric?
Thank you. With respect to the topic, we have a list of items that the Quechua Club wants to talk about. It would be nice to talk about some different things.
Right.
Do we have time, for example, to put out a query to the community to say, what do you want? What's on your list to talk about? And then sift through that. We have a special meeting next week to do interviews. Would it be possible to add an agenda item to finalize the agenda for the community engagement meeting based on community input received, no later than whatever.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I also wonder, do we need an agenda, right? If we're gonna say that this is our first community gathering, maybe it's come get to know your select board. And right, it's just like a casual conversation. If people have things that they want to bring up and talk about, it can be more open. And then we can, just kind of have a more conversationalist one. And then future ones can be, or maybe, every third one is just a conversation. And then we have a couple that with an agenda, and then another one that's more low stakes. And then
Can I respond to that? I like the idea. The counterpoint to that is if we have a listening session. So one of the things I did when we were in the final stages of the work plan was I added a little agenda time. I took the initiative of adding some agenda time for us to post listening session, digest what we heard, and then react to it, do something in response. And so if we open up the floodgates, we will get a flood. And then the question is, how do we react? So the one that was held at the Wilder Center last year was, I think, fairly narrowly defined. The topic was pretty narrowly defined. And it allows the town then to say, okay, we heard this and now we're going to do this, as opposed to we heard 700 things and now we're, 699 of you go away mad because your thing that you asked for didn't get done. It's a balancing act, but that's my concern.
Even the Wilder thing was funny because the topic was improving town communications and people wanted to talk about anything but.
Yeah. Still talked about everything. Even if there is a topic, I will say that, but yeah.
Ashley.
Yeah, and what I was actually gonna say was I guess I don't know that I do not think that the board right now has the time to take on, like you're saying, I wish that I could just have everybody come and give us their wish list of their priorities and that we'll go do something about it. I don't think with what's on our plate for the for the remainder of the year is that feasible. And so what I think, what I'd love to see the event be more about is building trust with local government more so than solving a problem, a specific problem in local government. And as we were talking about, so like, I think like Miranda said, the main part of it is like these face-to-face conversations of like feeling like we're approachable, feeling like we're accessible and engaged, and then maybe having just like one small part of it that's maybe like 15 to 30 minutes where there is some sort of like structured dialogue that's maybe more about like a positive vision or a positive, like a shared, like something feel good and like, so, and then I thought, well, what if as a facilitator, what if we reached out to, I'm forgetting the name of the organization, but Kendra Coburn is involved with Equity Solutions, which is a really grassroots based, really rooted in like class consciousness and like accessibility and equity, really local to Hartford, people that, have lived here their whole lives run that organization. So I'm just wondering, could we reach out to them and have them come up with like, yeah, we're right in town, we hear all these complaints, here's an idea of what you could maybe do to build some of that solidarity with the community.
I look at Mary and I'm increasingly feeling we need to wrap this meeting up.
Well, I'm okay. It's just getting more nerve tingling
Yeah.
because it's a long time. But
Yeah, so I don't know. I think, Eric, we could, I do think there's value in doing some sort of community feedback for future sessions. And I do think there needs to be follow through when we do that. And I wonder if this is maybe a little bit bigger picture, like I said, like more about trust and connection than it maybe is about like solving a problem, a specific problem.
I think we build trust through solving problems.
That's
my
sure
response.
True. Yeah, no, that's for sure true. Yeah, I just wonder about our actual, I think it's harmful to have listening sessions and not have capacity to do something. And then it makes people dislike us more. It just makes people say, well, we came out and we said over and over again, we do or don't want you to do this. And then the board just does whatever they want.
Right,
And
but by asking the community what they want to focus on and triaging that list, and then letting people understand that we may not be able to respond to it immediately. And then having select board meeting time set aside to at least talk about what we heard and what we might do about it. At least there's a progression toward a solution, maybe if a solution is what we're, what's needed. So.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people find problems because they don't trust us. It's just a perspective of it.
Part of the reason they don't trust us is there's not enough engagement. And that's what we're trying to do tonight, try to figure out a way to engage.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what you do, it'll be good.
Yeah. The point is that we want to be good for the town people.
we want to listen to them.
Yeah. We're here because of them. So I'm fine with whatever. If we want to do some outreach, we could go that route. Or if we want to just kind of go with a lower lift, maybe maybe we could even just reach out to local, like I said, Kendra Coburn's a local facilitator, or Prism. I mean, other facilitators fine too, just to see if they have a suggestion for like a loose agenda. We could do that, or I think we could even just like make a plan and then figure the facilitation out before the date.
Yeah, that's important, is to nail down a date with the final
Because
few.
a lot of these people might already be busy.
Yeah. Do we want to pick a date now?
Yeah. Are we doing weekday or weekend?
I think if we do weekday, it should be after 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Should it be the alternative between the two select board meetings, the Tuesday between the select board meetings? That's usually when people have their calendars available.
Wait,
So that'd be the 9th.
I will not be here the 9th.
the 9th, yeah.
I could do the 23rd.
Yep.
I will not be here the 23rd. I'd also be okay with a different day of the week.
Yeah.
Like Wednesdays are usually really good days. I'll also say from a mom perspective, Tuesdays and Thursdays are often sports days.
What about Wednesday, the 24th? 5:30.
I'll also be out of town that,
Oh,
I'm out of
sorry.
town that whole week.
Sorry.
I'm out of town the 17th to the 27th.
Oh, okay, what about the 10th? Is that too soon?
Probably.
Is it sounding like maybe the first week of October or something like that?
Wait, I have an idea. What if we comboed it with October's first Friday? Because people will be downtown. And I mean, I don't know,
That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
helps market.
Yeah.
Which would you rather go to, a meeting of the select board or first
Well,
Friday?
it's a potluck.
Friday.
Yeah, it's like stop by the municipal,
I'm
like,
just teasing.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there
Part
was a
of First
spot
Friday.
down.
Yeah.
I wondered,
Yeah.
wait, what if we
Filling
did it
station.
behind? I like behind.
Or at the
Well,
Main,
this is
Main
outside.
Street Museum.
oh yeah,
The
David
nations.
would totally support. I mean, we have to ask, and I don't know if there'd be a cost, but do we?
There, or like, there is that space behind Revolution that Kim has used for First Fridays before.
Right,
Oh, yeah, that
then we're in
parking
the
lot?
outdoors again.
Yeah, then we're outside again.
Yeah.
I know the new owners of the filling station.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah, that's an
Right.
option.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
That's
The
not a
station's
bad
not bad.
idea. That's the locals'
We
bar.
could definitely have a potluck there. And,
I
and
think-
it's right across from the Coolidge Lot.
You're right,
So,
like,
like,
I was-
yeah,
yeah.
Nick would even come.
Yeah, I will.
I agree.
Market was my next.
Filling station,
Yeah.
what time does First Friday start? 6? 5?
Yeah, somewhere around
Of
there.
course, that's I'm sure a money-making night for them. So we might have to do it before
We'd
the,
be bringing a crowd. for that.
Yeah, we could do
scaring,
it,
or
yeah,
scaring
we
off
should-
them.
So do we wanna, yeah, John, what are the
Why don't I do
logistics?
this, since it sounds like we have a little bit of time,
Right.
do we like the idea of that first Friday? If so, let's just say yes now and we'll figure out the venue.
Yeah.
But I'll talk with Jesse Pollard first thing
Okay,
tomorrow.
sounds good.
and sound him out about could he lend us his facility for an hour and a half session
Right.
as part of the first Friday of the thing.
Right.
He might say that's gonna kill our business, I don't know.
Yeah, and then if that's the case.
Drag.
Yeah,
Well, it
And
wouldn't
then-
be- yeah, I wouldn't have to close the whole business. People, I don't know.
Yeah, we could be off
On
in
the
that like
side, but
corner.
not the bar, yeah.
this is
And-
sounding much more fun than what we were talking about
Yes.
earlier.
My only thing is you might have a plan to have music that night.
Right,
So yeah.
but maybe, again, working with the
Right.
schedule of,
This is fall foliage season.
We could be the music.
Yeah.
all right, I will follow up and inform you
Awesome.
at the next meeting next week.
Facilitator. Do we
Facilitator.
want or no?
I
Yeah,
think we need a facilitator, otherwise it.
Okay,
are you comfortable?
I was thinking
guess-
this is a lighthearted
Oh,
First
if
Friday
that's fine.
event.
Yeah.
Meet your
Oh, I
select
didn't
board
realize. I thought
and
there
enjoy
was
First Friday.
Still the topic.
Because it might feel more of a drop-in kind of situation if it's.
Yeah, come and meet
More-
your, you said
More
come
of a
and meet your
select board
and-
social.
and-
Yes. Yes.
Cute.
And if the board is comfortable with it, I could reach out to Kendra and just get her opinion as
Yeah,
a local
doesn't hurt.
facilitator.
I
Yeah.
think
Sure.
informal opinions from anyone who's local, and if we want to have a formal, I'm not against the idea of like putting out, having JD or something put out a call, to say like, if you have a strong, if you have an idea for a topic, not making any promises, but, I don't know, I think it'd be useful to hear, and we wouldn't have to necessarily commit to one. And I also do think to de-emphasize, like, I do think even if we do pick a topic, it's not going to confine the conversation in any way. So I
Right.
don't think we have to stress out too much about what the topic is, because people will just bring their.
Or the topic is economic development. And you were witnessing it in the filling station. And around the corner, you can use your imagination.
Yeah, like the topic is like, what, downtown.
Local business.
Downtown.
Vibrancy.
Hartford. Yeah, vibrancy in Hartford. What do we want for the future?
One more thing, I'm wondering, do we have any budget for this? Because
Yes.
We could ask them to just do finger, rate the filling station.
That's true. That is true.
No potluck, give us
Oh,
some chicken tenders and french fries.
No.
or something.
That is
Oh.
absolutely true
Right.
because you've got more than $10,000 on account.
Oh, let's spend it up, baby.
Caviar for everyone in Hartford. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, or even like, I don't know. They could like even just another place to do some a little bit of catering. I do know Taji has really good catering.
Oh,
Ooh,
If
yes,
they would
they
allow us to
do.
bring outside.
Yeah, so we can figure that out with the
Okay.
venue,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe then,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
if it is First Friday, people are dropping in, they don't wanna have to like, make a
Yeah.
dish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, I was thinking like, anyway, Good, we're good on that. Let's
Okay, so what are we going to do about our applications?
Yes, and I just wanted to say a couple of things that I mentioned to Mary earlier. Yes, you certainly can decide to interview everybody. If so, I need to know how much time to allot for each interview and how you want to deal with questions. Obviously, if you ask the same questions, the fifth person is going to have the advantage of seeing the first four with the same questions being asked. I was suggesting that, Mary, we could have a list of, say, 30 questions, and you pull your name out of a hat at random, and you get a different set of questions, so that we're not trying to advantage anybody.
Yeah.
You think we have that many questions?
No, I mean, I'm just saying that I could put together a list of 30 or so.
Well, what if we had 2 questions, then we sent them ahead of time, so everybody knew what the questions were gonna be ahead of the interview?
Okay,
Is that
Or-
unfair? Like,
I mean, is it also unfair to say, I mean, it is a public meeting, so they could sit out in the hall and watch it on their phone, I guess.
right,
But like,
that was my
do we
concern.
call someone, like, each candidate in at a time?
Well, that was the concern I had with Mary, that somebody, conspiracy theorists and all that, you know. I was just trying to find a way to be absolutely bulletproof about any
Right.
unfair advantages or what have
sending
you.
them a couple questions ahead of time.
So now, let's
But then are
discuss,
we-
how much time do you want for
Yeah.
each interview, and how many questions does that mean?
I think 15 minutes is fine.
Yeah.
I was thinking 10.
I know, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's more than enough,
Of course, it's some of that you can't control depending on how long the answers are.
right?
Right.
But we
Well-
could certainly stack it up for 15 minutes per, which might mean what? At most 5 questions?
Yeah.
I think fewer. But yeah.
Well, then you get people who usually repeat themselves. If you give them, say, 7 minutes for one question, 7 minutes for 8 minutes for the other. Takes, you know,
I think we should probably set a limit of it maybe no more than 5 questions.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
like-
15 minutes, up to 5, up to 5 questions, but if you only use, if you use the full 15 minutes on 2 questions, that's your issue.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Should we send you questions that we might have ahead of time?
I'd be happy to have those, but at the same token, I've spent some time researching today typical questions you ask of select board people.
Oh,
I could give you maybe a list of 15 in the next day or two, how do we communicate, right?
I mean,
Well,
if
we
you
could
just,
all reply to you with our favorite questions, and then you
Yeah.
kind of consolidate, and whichever have the most votes.
Well, if we're talking, we only have 5 people here.
Right.
You each get to pick one.
Right.
And unless it's
Oh.
redundant, in which case I'll say try again.
I
Okay.
like, could we throw our own questions?
That's what
in
he's
the hat?
talking about, isn't it? Oh, you
Oh.
mean at the time?
Or like, no, like we could send our questions in advance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't you do this? Anybody who feels strongly that you have a specific question you want asked, send it to me. I'll put it on the list, but do so by, 3 o'clock tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah.
Aaron?
So I feel like I'll want to ask custom questions of each candidate based on what I know or don't know about them.
I see.
And those questions will
Maybe
be,
4 questions then, and one that just comes up individually, or?
yeah, I hadn't thought through all of the question and how many questions and so on, but to me, it makes sense to ask questions that elicit specific, if if I know someone, for example, I want to understand more about, this, that, or the next thing, right? Or if I don't know someone, I want to, delve into that topic. So I'm opposed to being sort of fed questions.
For me, it's about avoiding the appearance of preferential treatment for anybody by getting customized things.
Okay.
To the extent
Right.
we treat anybody differently, we'll get the conspiracy theorists
Right.
accusing us of doing whatever.
So the other approach is, we think of this as sort of like candidates night, and a moderator at candidates night uses the hat to pick someone's name and whatever.
Mhm.
And so a question, I don't know, we can randomly, we can pick the candidates in a random order and we can ask them customized questions. So we're never repeating the same question. So there is no advantage whether you went second or fifth or whatever.
Right.
Because you haven't heard that question or that answer.
And that's kind of what I had proposed to Mary, which is
Right.
that you pick a name out of a hat and that's how this question is selected, but it can't be customized for the person then.
See, I'm just not concerned about that because we're not pretending to be the voting body that's trying to like we're appointing a
Right.
teammate. And I think that we should be able to ask questions of specific people to find out if they are in fact qualified or not to help fill this position.
Amen. That's my opinion. Whether that's the opinion of Heidi Duto or someone else out in the community will be a different story.
I mean, I think that's, of all the things we've taken the risk of making the voters upset, this is one I'm happy to take on.
We need the appearance of fairness and,
Yes.
Yeah, it
and
should
so
be
on. And it
fair.
should be fair. But I just feel like,
But I don't know many of the people. on
and some
that
questions
list.
might come up on the spot, like just,
Shall we just dispense with the idea of pre-prepared questions and just let it fly?
I don't think so.
I think you need some guidance.
I mean, I think you get better answers if people are prepared.
Yeah.
So I think I would say have 2 questions that get sent to everybody
ahead of time.
so they can think of thoughtful answers for 2 questions. And then after we ask those questions, I think anyone on the board should be able to ask any question they want.
Like
of the
follow-up.
So
candidates.
it's
Yeah.
up to
any-
15 minutes rather than, you use your 15 minutes.
No, it's not a
No?
speech. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. It's respond to the question, and that you've thought about ahead of time. And then we can ask any follow-ups that we want that's relevant to your application or something you said in response to the questions.
And do we want to make an order ready for an agenda, Tim Farrell at 6 o'clock and so at 6:15?
I would say just do it alphabetical, like
Yeah.
first or last name.
We also have an online comment.
Okay,
Go ahead, Heidi.
go ahead, Heidi.
Heidi Duto, Waver Junction, Vermont. John, you almost got through a whole meeting without having me raise my hand, but you had to mention my name.
Sorry about that.
Goodness gracious, John. I've been listening in, but you just had to bring me out there. So now I'm going to put my 2 cents in.
Yes, please.
You did it to yourself, John. You just did it to yourself. I appreciate everything you all are doing tonight. Ashley, I see you hiding your face. Bless your heart. I love the fact that you guys want to keep the questions random, but I really think that you should ask some of the same questions to all of them, like what their background is as far as have they run for any boards, commissions, committees. Do they have backgrounds in budgeting? Do they have any, qualifications that you really need? I mean, like Mary said, there's three brand new people this year on the board, and you kind of do need some experience. So like John said, I have my opinions and I have my voice. So I had to say what I had to say. So keep working at it, people. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi.
Well, and now Heidi, John is being totally transparent in this process.
Absolutely.
so I think Ida's suggestion was fine. It
Yeah, I
strikes
agree.
the balance. I think it
Mhm.
works.
So give it to me again.
So I think we're gonna identify 2 questions that we'll send to all candidates ahead of time. And I
Mhm.
think we can do that by you sending us, I
Yeah.
don't know, 10 or so questions.
Yeah.
And then we all send you what our 2 would be.
Mhm.
And then you, from our input,
Yes.
decide on the final 2.
Mhm.
And then let candidates know that, it'll be a 15-minute slot. You'll be asked these 2 questions, and then select board members will ask you follow-up questions pertinent to your application or your responses.
Got it. And you don't care about the order of agenda, alphabetical is
Oh,
fine.
Yeah, I think alphabetical, but.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest, yeah.
Okay.
That way they don't have to
Yes.
stay around too long. and
Yep.
get more nervous.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna have to get used, someone's gonna have to get used to staying around, right? Part of the job.
That's actually the real test.
If we want accuracy in recruitment, we should have them here for 4 hours at least.
We trapped them here.
Okay, so is that handle
Yes,
everything?
I've got my marching orders. I'll be back in touch with you soon.
All right,
Thank you.
great. Okay, are there any commission reports? I'll start with Eric.
None. My commissions and committees are on break for August.
That's beautiful.
All right, Miranda?
H. Corey, for anybody still listening, still has an open seat and we would love to fill it so that we can have easier quorum.
All right, thank you, Miranda. Ida?
None tonight. I am looking forward to reconnecting with the Energy Commission next week, and catching up with them, and I'll have more to say after that meeting.
All right, thank you. Ashley?
No updates.
Okay, and none for me.
I should point out that we remember when we do have a new member, we'll want to consider appointing somebody as liaison to housing and homelessness. And was it planning department that Brandon had?
No,
Was it design review?
no, I have design review.
And then it was planning commission.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Wasn't zoning. Who's got zoning?
I've got something.
You got it. Okay, all right, great. All right, we have a consent agenda. I'll take a motion. Miranda?
I move that the select board approve payroll ending 8/16/2025, approve AP manifest of 8/15/2025 and 8/21/2025, approve the meeting minutes of 8/5/2025, and approve the future meetings of 8/26/2025, 9/2/2025, 9/16/2025, and 9/30/2025.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Eric, thank you for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0. And I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Eric, thank you. Ida for the motion. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm emailing this to everyone.